We have an amazing couple days in front of you, and it's kicking off with someone that I like to describe as the most enthusiastic man in real estate. Have you ever heard the phrase that you don't have to believe it, they don't have to believe it, they just have to believe? How does it go? They have to believe that you believe it. Jason has a way, whether he believes what he's saying or not, he was just talking about individually wrapped Tic Tacs. Whether he believes what he's saying or not, you believe by the end of the conversation that he believes it.
I believe, by the way, I believe it. Those are incredible. I've never seen individually wrapped.
He's psyched about these. So Jason, head of industry, KWRI, former HGTV, ESPN, television star. I know he loves that. You got to Google his headshot from back in the day there. What else have you done, Jason? Vice President, I think, was a title at that point. I mean, all the things. Jason is the industry expert in our company and in the real estate industry at large. I love learning from Jason. You guys are in for a treat. I want you guys to silence the phones, set it aside. You guys will have breaks built in, but I want you guys hanging on every word. I want you taking notes. I want you displaying, being learning based. Because at the end of today, your time with Jason, followed by Greg and Kristan, you guys will walk out of this room being better real estate agents, being better business people, being better wealth builders. Is that okay with you? Yeah. All right. So, I'm not going to steal any more of Jason's time. It's 9:01. The man himself. Give him some walking music.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you all for coming, and we're zooming out to other people? Fantastic. If you're on Zoom right now and you're watching, thank you for coming also. Okay, so those of us in this room get to make some choices that everybody watching on Zoom gets to live with. If you show up in person, you get to vote. So I believe that limited democracy is the best model, which is we vote on the things I want to vote on. So it works perfectly. They do it in Washington too. Here's what I think we should vote on. We give a couple choices. We're together until when? Tegan, when are we together until? Until 12. Until 12 o'clock. Okay, so we're here for the next 3 hours. The first thing we should talk about are the bathrooms. So we can either wait for a break and then all go together, or we can self-regulate and you just go when you need to go. It's your vote. All in favor of self-regulating. Anyone here? A motion passes. This is fantastic. So we'll just go for 3 hours, and anytime you need to pee, you can just go do that, and no judgment. The next thing we need to vote on is cell phones and computers. So here are our two choices. We either mute it and everyone puts it away, or we turn them off, which I get that. Or the second option is you just do whatever you want. So if you get like an opportunity to make money, you take the call. I'm not in sales prevention. So if you want to text with your friends, you can do that. If you want to be on Facebook, you can do that. You can do anything you want to do. So anyone want that one? Motion passes. Great. So you just do anything you want to do. And at any point you decide mentally not to be here anymore, that's fine. I know the content. I wrote it. I'm not offended by you leaving mentally or physically. The only thing I ask is if you're going to text, just do it normally. You don't have to do it under the table and make it look weird, because it's awkward for me. So do whatever you want to do. And then the last thing is the format for the day. So you have two choices on this also. There's no wrong answers. Format number one is I could simply just talk for the next 3 hours about anything that I want. And I can do that. Format number two is I could do an introduction, tell you kind of what's burning, and then we open it up and we simply make a list of all the things that y'all want to cover, and then I'll give you all the models and systems from top agents around the world to hit them. So, all in favor of that one? I think so. Okay, it's a good choice. I think that's the best format also. So that's what we'll do, which means you're now responsible for how you think today goes. So if you leave here and you say, gosh, that was a waste of time, it's your fault. Because you didn't ask whatever was burning in your life, which is the number one problem that I think people have when they go to courses. Most people go to courses and you get what you get. That would be okay if you were all being compensated to be here. Like if you worked at like a big company and you were all getting a salary and they said, we're going to have an in-service, you really wouldn't care what happened in this room. You'd be getting paid either way. But if you're actually trading time for dollars, which most people in the real estate business are, then when you come into an environment like this, you need to get your needs met. So everybody that's a note taker, pull out a sheet of paper. Now, we should cover this. The first model of the day is what Jay Papasan taught me about notes. And here's what he said. I'm going to paraphrase. He said, Jason, every time we meet with Gary, you take pages and pages and pages and pages of notes. And I said, yeah. And he said, great. What do you do with them? And I thought that was smart. No one had ever asked me that. So notes are things that many of us take copious amounts of that never refer back to, that doesn't make our life any better. So if you're like the greatest note taker in the world, but your life isn't improving, that's called intellectual tourism. And I want to get you out of that mode for a second. There's a great reason to write everything down. It helps implant it in your mind. But too often than not, the notes we take don't lead to the actions we should. So on the first sheet of paper, or somewhere in your notebook today, I want you to write across the top, parking lot. This page is now your parking lot. And here's the idea. When you have a question, you write it in the parking lot. When you hear something that you would like to take action on, you write that in the parking lot. Everything else, you just put into your regular note section. And at the end of the day today, I'm going to ask you to clear your parking lot. If I forget, someone remind me. Which is, if you have a question there that you didn't get to ask, we're going to do it. And the things that you were going to want to take action on, we're actually going to take action. Other than that, you can fill up the whole book with pictures and noodles and do you like me, check yes marks, and whatever else you all do with notes. Does that sound good? You should never take another class again without a parking lot. That's what Jay told me. I think it's really smart. So I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes of the coolest conversation that I had last week with Gary. And while I'm doing that, here's what I'd like you to be doing. I want you to start thinking about whatever the biggest problems in your business and in your life are. Because when I ask, okay, what are the questions you have, it only gets awkward if nobody has one. That's when we can just leave and we don't have to do the full 3 hours. So start thinking now. Here is the coolest part of my last week. I was watching Gary. I know, you've seen it. No, you haven't. It's different. I was watching Gary teach a leadership class. And someone in the room said, hey, and it's probably not your market centers, it's other market centers. So I just want to get that out of the way right now. This is not yours, it's theirs. That there are people within it that start teams, and then every 8 months, those teams implode. And then the person that used to own those things says, they won't do the stuff I'm telling them. Why does that seem to be an epidemic in the, again, not yours, other market centers. Why does that seem to be an epidemic in the real estate business? And Gary had I thought, the most brilliant answer that I've been thinking about ever since he said it. He said, because the challenge is most people don't actually learn how to lead. The person said, well, what do you mean, lead? And he said, well, it looks like this. He says, the first place we get to lead is ourselves. We then earn the right to lead individuals, which I don't know how to spell, but that says individuals. Then up here, we earn the right to lead teams of people. 2, 3. And he said that most people on the planet skip directly into leading individuals. And I said, well, how does that happen? And he said, they start a family. And they instantly are now leading a family because the little people need leadership. So that's what happens in life. He said in business, people say, I'm a universe of one. I'm going to go start a team. And the next thing you know, they got a bunch of people around them, so they skip both of these steps, and now they're just quote-unquote leading a team. And the challenge is that if you don't build this in the right order, it has no foundation. And when he said that, well, that made sense to me. And then someone said, well, how do you learn how to do these things? And he said, it's really easy. I hate when he says that, but it's really easy. You have to start with leading yourself. And someone said, well, what does that mean? And he said, here's what it means. In the book, The One Thing, on page, I think it's 113, but I could be mistaken, there's this picture of these 7 circles. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Okay, for those of you that don't, there's this picture of these 7 circles. And they're in a very specific order. And what Gary said is that these circles represent the most important parts of his life. And when all of those circles come together, he equates that with the world coming together, and all of a sudden the human comes together. So the first circle that he has, I'm not going to take you through all 7. You don't have to get scared. It's not going to be the whole thing. The first circle that he has is spirituality. He says, for me, that's the most important thing. The next one that he has is physical health. He says, short of spirituality, I'm living in this house my entire life. I got to take care of it. That's important. Next one, key relationships. Who are the key relationships that he has in his life? Next one, his job. You spend an awful lot of time at work. Next one, his wealth. Your job is not your wealth. Wealth is a whole different conversation, which we can have today if you'd like to, because he's taught me a little bit about it. Anyway, he has all these circles. And he says that everybody on the planet has the same circles. But it's such a small group of people that actually think about what they want out of each of those circles. And so the tragedy for most of the planet is they just get what they get instead of getting what they deserve. And I heard him say that, and I was like, for my life, that's so true. Even at the times when I've thought I've been really focused, I'm usually focused on 1 or 2 of the circles at any given time. And I'm different than you guys. You're probably all wildly happy. It's okay. I know you're miserable too. It's okay. Is it because all those circles end up operating out of balance? And so all of this sounded really esoteric. And someone said, well, okay, so how do you do it? Here's what he said. He said, there's a model. Shocking, right? There's a model for it. Step number 1, you go get the book. Step number 2, you go look at the circles and you write down what each circle is. Step number 3, and this is where you all should start doing this thing. You write 1 sentence. That's it. It's 1 sentence of what you actually want to have in each of those circles. Now, for some of you that have been thinking about your lives profoundly and you're smarter, you'll be able to look out 30 years and do that. For people like me, it's really, really hard. I'm just discovering all this a little later in life. I can look out maybe 5 years. And he said, it doesn't matter. Even if you can look at only 1, what do you want out of these circles? And write the sentence. Step 2, you write the 1 action that you can start taking on a daily basis to get closer to that outcome. And step 3, you just do the stuff. And it sounded so simple to me. And I was like, okay, well, give me an example. I'm an example person. Give it to me. He said, no problem. And he started to give examples around all of them. I'm going to give you 2 of his examples so you can follow this way of thinking. Health. He wrote, live to be 100 years old. Okay. The 1 thing he wrote under it, control my diet. And then he came up with a model for his diet. Now, he'll wax poetically for like 11 hours on what that is. But it's just a lot of vegetables and cold water fish. That's it. That's all it is. It's called the Okinawa diet. There's a 500-page book on it. That's all it is. You eat a lot of vegetables, throw in a little fruit every now and then, and eat a bunch of fish, and you're good. In any event, that's all he has for that circle. Then he had one for key relationships, and he had written the names of all of his key relationships. It started with his wife, Mary. They just celebrated their 36th wedding anniversary. Then he had his son, John. Then he had all of his grandchildren, and then he had his dog, Millie. I was not on the list. And next to each of those people, he had the 1 thing he needs to do for those relationships to get the most impact. I don't feel comfortable telling you what it was for his wife and son and grandchildren, but I do feel comfortable telling you about the dog. With Millie, the 1 thing that he needs to do with that dog is the minute he walks in the door, he literally gets on the ground on all 4s and plays with this dog for 3 to 5 minutes before walking into the house. And he's discovered that if he does that, the dog's behavior is better, everything. But I thought it was really funny, right? Like, people think it's weird to be purposeful about stuff like that. But the people that get the most out of life are the ones that aren't purposeful about everything. They're purposeful about the right thing. Because people say to me all the time, wow, he's so purposeful about it. He's got a model for everything. He doesn't. As a matter of fact, as you get to know him, you realize really quickly the super majority of things he doesn't have a model for, and he's disorganized around. But the 7 things that matter most in his life, And the 6 things that matter most in his business, he's wildly purposeful around those things. Everything else, he's willing to get what he gets. So self-leadership, as he described it, was knowing what the circles are, knowing what you want the outcomes to be, and then doing one thing every day to get closer to having those outcomes. I thought that was beautiful. It was the best part of my week last week. It was the first time anyone had ever made something that is so big and confusing to me sound so simple. The question then came up with, well, then what? How do you lead an individual? And he said, it's really easy. You're the person that helps them figure out what's important in their 7 circles, that helps them figure out what actions they should be taking. And then, if you're lucky enough to be influential in their life, help hold them accountable to doing the one thing every day to get it. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh. And he said, isn't that what you're trying to do with your 10-year-old little boy? Isn't that the idea? I had never thought of it that way, of course. We were just playing Fortnite, like I wasn't doing all this. And I said, yeah, I guess, then what's a team? And he said, team is the easiest one on here. And I said, wait a second, I've seen every operations manual from every team in the country. There's nothing easy about running a real estate team. It's really hard. And he said, I didn't say anything about running a team. This is a pyramid of leadership. And I said, well, so how do you lead a team? He said, a team is nothing more than a group of individuals who have all decided that their job is going to be in alignment with each other. And I thought that was such a simple way to think about it, because he's right. Let's just pretend we were all on a real estate team and we all had a closing today. We all might think about wealth differently. We all might think about what to do with our money after we get it differently. You might buy another Tesla, join another country club, I might save it, whatever it is. But we would all be making our money in a similar fashion, choosing to be in fellowship with each other. But you might not wake up today with the same level of effort as I do, and vice versa. What would the reason for that be? Probably back to how we think about our 7 circles and what we each wanted out of life. There'd be no wrong answer. There would simply be a divergence of what we think is important. But if neither of us have went through the exercise of figuring out what we think is important, how can we possibly hold someone else accountable for ever leading us to getting the things we want? So, is it the person who owns the business that's responsible, or for the people that work in the business that are responsible? We could go on all day. What I wanted to give you here was what I believe was a gift that he gave us that day, which was the gift of simplicity around leadership, which ultimately became the gift of simplicity around life. We all get one. What happens after, none of us know. Yet the outcomes we get are so wildly different. Based on effort? Sure. Based on natural gifts? Sure. Based on luck? Sure. Based on privilege? Absolutely. But the number one thing it's based on is our clarity around what we want. Because if we're not clear on what we want, you get what you get and you have no right to complain. Does that make sense? That blew me away when he said it. I couldn't believe it. That was the best part.
Recording in progress.
Perfect. That was the best part of my week. So, that's the opening on this, and I want to get you thinking a little differently about life. Now, it's your part. If you haven't thought of anything to ask, we are really going to be in for an awkward few minutes. So, does anybody want to go first? Here's the way I'm thinking about this. You can ask any question about real estate, any question about business, or any question about wealth building. We'll then make a list, we'll bucket them, and every question will get answered. And I won't answer any of them with a guess. I'll answer each one of them with a model and system and tell you how I proved it. Someone go first. Protecting your schedule. I'm going to bucket that with time management. That's a good one. I'm not sure how to spell manage. Or schedule. There's like a CH in that. Schedule. You'll remind me if I can't read it. Yeah. Influencing others. That's a good one. Influence others. Okay? Attracting talent. The challenge of life. Building wealth.
And protecting it.
Oh, the double whammy? Building wealth and keeping it. Anyone else? Yeah.
Breaking into.
How much water is in that?
This is 128 ounces.
128. Wait, will you drink all that today?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Breaking into other like client demographics than what your current.
You want to sell more expensive homes?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's just call it rich people. Rich people, how? There's only 3 ways to do that. Anyone else? Say that one more time. Burnout. I don't know the answer, and I haven't found a good model for it. We can talk about it. Educating new investors. Meaning you want to take people that want to invest, get them to understand it so they start buying investment property from you? Educating investors. I'm going to suggest there's an easier way to do that than educating them, because I think teaching people stuff's really hard.
Extreme ownership.
More? What's the question?
There are no bad teams, bad leaders. Take the ownership of the league.
Yeah. And you want that in a different format than that, which is kind of like my how to lead. Okay. Extreme ownership thoughts. I only know 2 more models for that one, so I hope one of them works. Converting more of your database. Ooh, let's do that, and then let's also, along with that, show some of the math behind it so that no one's confused anymore on that. Meaning selling them or taking them? Well, selling them these days, I mean, it's still, don't you just put it on the MLS and hope for the best? There might be a different marketing plan, I don't know. That seems to be the one most realtors use. Getting clarity on dreams. Cool. Anyone else?
Getting out of your own way.
Get,
Getting out of your own way so that you can
I don't know how to help with that one. She said getting out of your own way, and how do you do that? I don't have a great answer for it. So instead of lying to you, I'll just tell you I don't know. Cool. Next market. Cool. This is, yeah. Is it? It's such. Is there anyone at it that you know of? Who? 7th level? She works her ass off, and she's so in the business. I might be talking about a different Kristan. I think it's a myth. I'm happy to talk about it, but well, it depends. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, Gary's at the 7th level. Working? This dude called me at 4 a.m. today. I don't know if the goal was to get to the 7th level or if the goal was to get people to start thinking differently, that there could be a beginning point and an ending point. An ending point doesn't mean your business just stops. Remember, when the book was written, the default in the country at that time was, I'm a realtor who does business. Then I decide I want to retire and I just do less business until I do none. This idea that there's another way to do it, that we could hire people to run these businesses and work less, or we could hire people to do the parts that we really loved doing and not the other parts, or that there could be a sale event for these businesses, which is now happening more than I've ever seen in the history of our industry. I think the idea has evolved. And for me, it means that for everything good in life, there's an on-ramp and an off-ramp. And the 7th level was an example of an off-ramp. In to out.
Not necessarily out, because like when I'm painting, I don't want to be out shopping around showing homes. I'd rather be coaching, helping, doing things like that.
How about only doing the parts you like? Okay. By the way, that to me feels so organic. Because isn't that kind of what we do in life? Like, my guess is that there's a group of people in this room that only do the stuff they like. Those are you gentlemen. Women, statistically speaking, it turns out you do all stuff and you don't like. Which is really weird, but don't get mad at me, it's because of the data. It turns out that women take care of other people before themselves, and they'll take care of strangers before they take care of their own needs. That's what the data shows. There's a great book on it called Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders and How to Fix It. If you haven't read it, read it. The truth is, though, it's wildly organic to wake up at some point and want to do less of the activities you don't like. And what you're asking is, how do I do that in my business and still make the same or more money? That's a valid question. Okay, cool, yeah.
This might be kind of redundant, might go with 12 building, but how to exit, how to retire.
I'm going to give that to you. Gary just wrote a whole new class on partnering and exiting. No one's seen it yet. It's like in the ilk of ESO. It's so good. It's coming your way. All right, let's hit these, and if we have time, we'll do more. Let's start with this thing. I want to start with this database question. And the only reason I'm starting there is because once we understand database, and it happens to be the foundation of every good real estate business, then we can do everything else from there. It feels like a logical place to jump off. So let's get really clear on something. The reason that I'm in the residential real estate business is to make cash. This is how I make cash. I then use that cash to invest in things that, number one, go up in value, and number two, throw off positive cash flow. That's it. It's the only reason I'm in the business. I do this to make cash, and that's the only reason I need cash, is to buy stuff that goes up in value and stuff that throws off positive cash flow. That's it. The reason that's so important to address is because whenever I say that, if we're going to talk about wealth and everything else, there's always people in the room that say, well, I'm in it to help people. I love helping people. I love you, by the way, if you say that. But that's not why you're in it. That's an awesome part of being in it, but that's not why you're in it. I can only evidence this by the fact that in all of my years, I've never seen a realtor who likes helping people so much that every time they sell a house, they move their commission to a credit for the buyer or seller on the HUD and do it for free. I've never seen that. So let's just get real. If all you were in for was helping people, that would be your default. So now that we can all agree that we don't run nonprofits, let's talk about how to make as much money as we can. If you don't take that jump and have that conversation, let me just tell you, I'm a capitalist, and you won't like the rest of this class, because I'm into making money. And here's how I think about money. I think about it like this. We are here today. And today, we're going to make X amount of dollars. Everyone in this room is here today, and you all know the amount of money that you make. Is that fair? Perfect. So why do you make that amount of money? I would tell you it's the combination of four things. Number one, it's the number of people in your data bank. Database, SOI, call it whatever you want. I call it a data bank because in order to make any money with it, you got to make deposits in order to one day get withdrawals, which is repeat and referral business, and that's what this is all about. Number two, the quality of the touches that you make to this. There's two types of touches. There's low quality and high quality. You send someone a postcard that says, hey, it's time for a spring cleanup. That is a terrible touch. It has absolutely no value in anybody's life. Everyone knows what time of the year it is. Anna Kalinsky, on the other hand, she sends out 10,000 leaf bags to her database and says, it's spring cleanup time. Use these bags, my gift to you. You see the difference between quality and not quality? Cool. That's the difference. Number three. Quantity. The quantity of quality touches that you make. You make one quality touch a year, you are not going to get very many repeat and referral businesses. You make 100, you probably will. The number of touches you need to make is in direct relation to the quality of the touches you're giving. The higher the quality, the less you need. Does everyone follow me on that? That's it. The fourth one is prospecting. And I'm going to draw a dotted line. Prospecting is the only other way to make money today. You're either going to get a repeat and referral from your database, or you're going to go pound the pavement to meet somebody that wants to buy and sell. That's called prospecting. And I bucket all of it. Open houses, standing at the grocery store, holding a sign on the expressway, you do you. Whatever you want to do, pie giveaway, that's prospecting. Does everyone follow me on that? There's no other way to make money in this business today than these four things. Here's the challenge. Most people wake up in this industry for their entire career and they never leave this side of the board. And that's why they say things like, how do I handle burnout? Or that's why they say things like, how do I get to the 7th level? Because this is fatiguing, and all of the different things that we say. This is today. We all want to go to tomorrow. I don't know how many W's there are. We all want to go to tomorrow. Tomorrow is this. $1 million data bank. That's where you want to go. Now, why do I use $1 million? I haven't met a lot of people that make $1 million that don't want to make more. I'll start by saying that. But here's what else I know. If you're making $1 million a year, you have more options than someone who isn't. You're known happier, perhaps. All money does, it gives you options. We're all going to drive here in a car. People that make $1 million a year get to choose different cars. We're all going to go on vacation. People that make $1 million a year get to choose different resorts. Money just gives you choices. If you say, because I always offend someone, and they're like, I don't need to make $1 million. I need to make 300 grand. Great. Make $1 million and then give 700 of it away. There's no reason to try to build anything less because it's just not that much easier. It's not. Here's what the $1 million database is. The question isn't how many people are in your database anymore over here. It's the number of people in your database that send you, I call it R squared, repeat and referral. Enough repeat and referral business to make $1 million. That's it. No prospecting, that's now gone. The number of people based on the quality of touches that you do and the quantity by which you send them gets you the amount of repeat and referral business to make $1 million a year. So here's how you can figure out your math, and it's important that we understand math. What's your average sales price? Write it down. I'm just going to use round numbers because I did this exercise with someone the other day. They said to me it's $750,000. I said, oh my gosh, I love that. I work for a living. Mine's $250,000. Whatever your number is cool. Now divide that number by $1 million. How many units do you need to sell? If you want to go a different way, figure out what your commission rate is against this. So 750, I'm going to say 3.3% average commission gets you what? What's that number? Do it for me. Everyone do your own math. 750 times 3.3%. 25 grand in realtor math. Okay, what's 1 million divided by 25,000? 40? Great. I'm going to round it up to 50 just because who knows what expenses are going to happen, and gosh knows I'm going to have to do credits and everything else that goes with it. So I got to do 50 units to live this life over here. So I need enough people in my database with the quality of touches that I'm making at the right quantity to get me 50 units a year. That's it. So now that you know the number, this is really easy. Subtract out how many deals you're doing today, repeat and referral out of your current database based on your current quality of touches and the current quantity you're making. So how many repeat and referral businesses do you get each year currently? For the person that I was doing this with, I think they said 20. Cool. So great. So they need to come up with either more people or a higher quality of touch at a different reliability rate to do an extra 30 deals, and they're there. Which pretty much means this person is wildly close already to living the life that they want, but they wake up every day feeling that they're so far away. They're not. None of you really are. You've just convinced yourself that you are. Does everyone follow this line of thinking? This is the destination. Let me ask you this. Raise your hand if you love lead generating. Perfect. There's always one. You're good. It's okay. You don't have to be embarrassed. Great. Are you lead generating if you own this? In a much different way. By the way, if you don't like lead generating and you're living on today, you're living on this side, and this is the thing that's tripping you up every day, that you should be doing more quote-unquote prospecting, you do realize that you've created a job that you hate. Which is stupid. If your focusing question is, how do I wake up every day and do something I don't like better? That's dumb. That's really dumb. Why would anyone get into the real estate business for that? This is the destination. And by the way, I'll make it really easy. If you already have a large number of people in your database, then you should wake up every day, all day, and say, what are the quality touches that I need to be making in order to get more repeat and referral business? And here's how you do it. Here's the model. Step 1, make a list of every touch you're already making. You always, whenever you're doing anything, start with holding yourself in reality long enough for you to appreciate your current circumstance. Where am I? That's why you're making this list. The next step, you got to assess which of the touches are quality. So how do you do that? Here's how you do it. Here's how I got here. What I did was I said, if I'm not getting the amount of repeat and referral business I want, what I'm really saying is I don't feel like I'm getting enough compensation for this job. I'm doing this job every day. I'm not getting compensated enough for it. So I went on the hunt for the best definition of the word compensation. I found it in a book called The Wealthy Gardener. And here's the you don't have to write it down, but just internalize it. Here was the definition. Compensation is something you get for something you give. I had never thought about it that way. That changed everything for me. It's something you get for something you give. Listen to this next line. This blew me away. It's repayment. Think of compensation as repayment. It's repayment for a contribution that you made that was both needed and useful. Write down the word needed and useful. It's repayment for a contribution that you made that was both needed and useful. Needed and useful. Needed and useful. Needed and useful. Hang on. And if you wanted to, again, you don't have to write all this down, but it's derived from 4 things. Number 1, the need for your service. Number 2, your proficiency at delivering it. Meaning, are you any good at this? Number 3, and this is the scary one, the difficulty in replacing you. And number 4, the number of people you get to serve. Number 1, the need for your service. Number 2, your proficiency at providing it. Number 3, the difficulty in replacing you. And number 4, the number of people you get to serve. So let's think about this for a second. We're a profit share company at KW. So how much should Gary Keller get paid as a salary? You just shout it out. I'm kidding. It's hard, but we're a profit share company, so we got to set a number on it, and he does deserve a salary. So if you use this definition, let me just tell you. Okay, the need for his service. I don't know what we would do without the guy. Okay. Number 2, how good is he at his job? Turns out really good. Number 3, the difficulty in replacing him. I don't even know where you'd begin. Number 4, the number of people he gets to serve. The largest real estate company the world's ever known. Okay, by that definition, that guy should make a lot of money. Do we agree? Okay, he does. Perfect. Now that you've seen it in action, think about it in your business. I would tell you our business breaks into 2 categories. Number 1, during the transaction, and number 1, outside of the transaction. During the transaction, they need you. They can't do anything without you. They can't even get into the houses without you. So the need for your service, never been higher. Number 2, how good you are at it. Statistically speaking, you're all pretty good at it because 83% of consumers say they thought their realtor did a great job as long as they found them a house they like. So you're really good at this. Number 3, the difficulty in replacing you. It's really hard to replace a realtor during a transaction. I mean, hell, you guys hang a box with a lock on it on their house. How can they get rid of you? You're good. Number 4, the number of people you get to serve. That's just called lead gen. So it makes sense. It's outside of the transaction where you have the problem. What's the need for the realtor service outside of a transaction? For the 7 years that people are in the house you already sold them. How much do they need you? I don't think they need you at all. What are you actually doing for them? Don't get me wrong. If you don't give them the Costco pie in November, they'll go get it on their own. So it can't be that. So we got a problem there. Number two, how good are we at being in the business when they don't need us? Not very good at it because there's nothing to do. How easy is it to replace a realtor when you don't need one? I don't even know how to answer that. It's really easy. And then the number of people you get to serve, you don't do anything during that time. This is where we have the problem. This is why you're not getting the number of repeat and referral out of your database. Because bless you, number one, we haven't articulated what we provide in between transactions. Number two, most of our touches are not needed or useful. That's where we're missing it all. So once you have this list of all your touches, go through and put a check mark next to the ones that are needed and useful. And here's what you're going to find, bless you. You're going to find you don't have that many check marks. If yours is anything like all the other businesses we've audited, that's what you're going to find. Then all you need to do is start replacing useless touches with useful ones. And don't try to do all of it overnight. Just do one at a time. So what are some examples? I think that Anna's leaf bag example is genius. I think that's brilliant. Dan Ahara, he has some great ones. He does large junk removal from people's homes twice a year. So he hires a junk service and a couple of people that can lift stuff, and he calls his database twice a year and he says, hey, do you have anything in the house that's large, couches, beds, bookshelves, anything that you need to have thrown out? We'll drive to your house and we'll bring heavy lifting people and we'll remove it for you, no charge. Does anyone have any shit in their house they want to get rid of? Just out of curiosity. Cool. Yeah, me too. So I think that's genius, right? And that's such a touch that's needed and useful. By the way, the people that are getting rid of a lot of their big stuff are usually decluttering. He picks up listings every time he does that. I think it was genius. I think his gutter clean out thing is genius. You have a guy in Arizona, Mr. Whatever It Takes. He's a Keller Williams agent. He does this gutter cleaning thing too. He used to send a postcard that said it's time to clean your gutters. And now he calls and says, hey, it's not just my job to sell you a beautiful home. I should help you live beautifully in the home I sold you. Can I send someone over to clean your gutters this year for free? And by the way, his average sales price is like $900,000. So for him to spend $60 to send someone over to clean the gutters is the greatest touch he can make to his database. These are just examples. What's that? Someone say? There's another agent who picks up, he hires somebody and they pick up once a year all of the paint cans and anything toxic that you have in your garage and then delivers them to the county to be responsibly thrown out. You know who's got paint cans in their garage? Everyone. Yeah, rich people, poor people, everybody. That's a needed and useful touch. You're going to start thinking, and if you're sitting here and you're like, I can't think of any, great. Just start calling your people and ask them. Say, hey, here's what I notice. I get a ton of junk mail. I don't want to be a person who sends it. I want to give you things that you actually need. What do you need that's around your house that I can be providing? Most of them are going to say, I have no idea. It's the strangest question I've ever heard. I don't know the answer. And you're going to say, great, well, at least you know the way that I think. If you think of anything, call me. And then one person is going to have a good idea. It's the biggest no-brainer there is. Once you have enough needed and useful touches, this takes care of itself. By the way, once you get here, you never have to go back to here. Ever. You could say, well, I want it to be 2 million, in which case you just need to add more people. Does that make sense? Great. What was you?
My question was, how do I vet what a needed and useful addition would be? So you nailed it.
Yeah, she said, how do I vet what a needed and useful addition will be? You know the answer. Here's how you know. You're being marketed right now by everyone on the planet, including other realtors. Raise your hand if you get shit in the mail from realtors. Perfect. Do you think any of it's valuable? Why do you send it? I don't know. I think it's, I don't know the answer. I know that it's making me crazy. I also know that, look, I love a good cutting board as much as the next person. I don't need another one from a realtor. I just don't. I don't need a pie. I don't need a cutting board. I don't need a picture of a realtor with a lap dog, although I think it's adorable. I don't need, none of these things are needed and useful. they're cute and they make me like you a little bit more, and I think that's important too, but we have to move the needle on what we're providing, or we're gonna start to look really out of touch. In an immediate generation, you have to provide immediate value.
So, in the past, clients that we've had that have said multiple deals to us, my husband and I have taken them out personally to a high-end restaurant.
I love that.
And asked them and just go into that relationship with them, and it is.
She said the clients that send them, her and her husband take them out to a really nice restaurant and have a great thing. Genius. I think people do business with people they like. 20 deals with one person, all day long. People do business with people they like, so you want to be more likable more often to more people. And by the way, you're seeing this fad happen with top agents. They're getting away from the giant client events, and micro events are like the #1 thing they're doing. And a micro event isn't, I'm going to throw a party for 300 people and give everybody a goodie bag. Love that. A micro event is, I'm going to invite once a month 5 couples or 5 people out of my database to a beautiful dinner. And I'm just going to get to know them, and they're going to get to know me, and we're going to connect people, and we're going to have an actual human organic experience. And we're not going to say things like, does it scale? Like, it doesn't have to. We're talking about 50, I need 50 referrals. How much scale do you need? That's, by the way, that's to make $1 million. A lot of you are like, $1 million's not enough for me. Great. You may have to have 7 people at the dinner. I just complicate this at your own peril. But those 2 things will always be true. People will always do business with people they like. And needed and useful will always be valued. Is that good? Okay, so that took care of the database thing. So now that we're making money, and we showed you the math on it, I want to address this idea of burnout. I don't know whoever asked that. I believe burnout happens when you have no idea where you're trying to go. Burnout happens when I think you feel like you're on a hamster wheel for anything, and that is just what it is. So if you don't like my number of $1 million, change it. What's burning you out? Make a list of the activities that is burning you out. Here's what I know about life. In life, you get to pick your problems. We all have them. If you don't feel weird about this, raise your hand if you pay somebody to clean your house at any interval. Okay, great. Let me just be clear. We all have a problem, our own wretchedness. I got all that. So we all in life, we pick the problem. If you don't want to have a dirty house, it's simple. You just become homeless. We've all decided on a different problem. I'm going to have a dirty house. Great. Step 1, in life, you pick your problem. Step 2, you pick how you pay to solve it. That's it. Nikki Miller taught me this. And here's what I mean when I say you pick how you pay to solve it. If you've decided to solve it with your time, your expertise, or your knowledge, you've decided to pay with your life force. You only have so much of it. You only get a period of time for life force. And then at some point, it's going to be over. I don't want to get dark as 1,000 midnights, but all of you are going to die. Statistically speaking, it's a guarantee. Great. That has a cost. The other option is you pay money to somebody else. Those are predominantly the 2 ways that you pay for stuff in life. Those of you that said, I pay someone to clean the house, great. You have the same problem that I did. You decided to pay with money. I decided to pay with my time. We both solved it. That's everything in life. Burnout happens when, number 1, you don't acknowledge that. Step 1, I picked all the problems I have. That's a pretty big step, by the way. If you can get there emotionally, you're doing really well. I'm in therapy, but if you can get there, you're doing really, really well. Step 2, how do I want to pay to solve it? And I think the essence of burnout is not doing either of those steps, nor actually knowing how close you are to where you're going. You know, there was this great study. If you go all the way back in time to the first penal colonies, you weren't sent there with a sentence. You were sent to a penal colony, and then at some point they would come and tell you, you've paid your debt to society, you're free. And what they found during that time, and the correlation's a little loose, but suicide rates were wildly high for those people. Then they start putting in a sentence, so you knew when it was going to begin and when it was going to end. and the suicide rates went to almost nothing in the same penal colonies. In life, there's a start, you're born. There's a finish, you're dead. That's as organic as it gets. Burnout comes when you're doing something and you have no idea how it ends, when it ends, or what it looks like as it goes there. That's how I think you solve burnout. I don't know who asked that, but I hope that helps. That's how I think about it. Cool. So now we're making cash. We've dealt with the emotional problem that we have with burnout. And we're going to get into this wealth thing in a second, but let's knock out some of these on the way, which is, okay, I'm making cash selling $200,000 houses, but I want to sell $1 million houses instead. If you've ever had that thought, you're a realtor. So here's the deal about selling more expensive homes. There's only a few ways to do it. Number one, you either have to become rich. Now, that's a tough first step, by the way. And the reason for that is because, love it or hate it, it's not that probably not going to be your model. I'm going to help you. So yeah, you just become rich. Because as soon as you are, you simply start living in a different way and meeting a different group of people, and you become accepted by a different socioeconomic class. Gary says that's called identity, and there's two ways to get it. You either wait for it to happen, or you change your current identity to look like the way you want it to be in the end. The second part of that is the key. Who do I have to be today, and how do I have to govern myself such that I end up there some point? That's a different way to think about identity. But it's too esoteric to answer your question. So you either get rich, or number two, you start hanging out where rich people hang out. Step two, it's the next option you have. Which, by the way, there's a realtor in every town that's running the country club model, which is genius. Mark King documented it, made a living doing it, became the #1 agent in Springfield doing this model, which is I join the nicest country club in town. I go there every single day. A year later, I literally am the realtor for the country club in every town that exists. It's a tough model. I'm not great at golf. I'd have a hard time with it. Number three, it's this concept right here. I have buyers and I have sellers. And down here, I have realtors. This space in the middle, in every socioeconomic group, is filled with different people called connecting people. I grew up in Metro Detroit. My mom was a teacher in Detroit. And in my town, the person who knew and connected everything was the barber. It was an urban community. The barber knew all the gossip. You were like, hey, who shot who? They were like, that guy. Like the barber in Detroit knew everything. I didn't want to sell homes in Detroit. I wanted to sell homes to rich people. And here's what I know about rich people. And if you're rich, you'll know this is right. All rich people have the same people here. Lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors. That's the connective tissue for all rich people. You can't be rich without them. The whole system is set up so you can't be rich without these people. So you either have to get rich, hang out where rich people are, or become a service provider to the service providers of rich people, which is the route that I went. So what does that mean? It means that the average divorce attorney is going to do 10 divorces a month. 56% of this country. I think it's a lead generation issue, but we don't have to talk about that. So 10 divorces a month means 10 people need to buy and sell their marital home. So that's 10 deals. Then each X either needs to buy or rent. So each divorce attorney is connected to 30 deals. You follow my math? So that's 360 deals a year. So if you get one divorce attorney to give you 20%, that would be 72 transactions. Ergo, you'd be your millionaire. Okay, I like those odds. That means that you're one, not 10, not 7, not 16. You're one divorce attorney relationship away if you get 20% of their business to make $1 million a year. Can I use you as an example? Are you comfortable enough with this? No one who carries that water bottle is not comfortable with themselves. I got it. If you were making $1 million a year, would your life look different?
Yeah.
You're one relationship away. Now, most real estate agents wake up and they say, I'm 50 deals away. I got to go influence 50 different people. You don't. You got to influence one divorce attorney. Because here's the deal. Rich people don't pay these people for their advice and then not take it. If you're rich, you know this. When your lawyer says, you should do blank and blank, you don't say, yeah, I'm going a different route. No one does that. You do what they tell you. It's the same for the accountant, and it's the same for the financial advisor. So, all you have to do is go be likable to one person. Not one in each category, any one person. If you told me to put these in order for you, divorce attorney is always number 1, financial advisor is always number 2, and accountant for me is always number 3. Because accountants find out on the back end of the decisions that financial advisors and lawyers make on the front end. And if you're rich, you know that's right. Because at the end of the year, on April 14th, you send them that email like, this is all the shit I did last year. Right. That's how you do it. So if you want to go hit divorce attorneys, here's your model. You should go and you should pull up a list of the biggest divorce attorneys in the Valley. And y'all, divorces in Arizona are like a sport. So you're good. It's not like there's a gap in that model. I mean, it's, y'all are, this place is crazy. But so you won't be a problem there. And you got to go make friends with someone. Financial advisors, you should go to the Barron 1200 list. The Barron's 1200 list lists the top 1,200 financial advisors in the country based on AUM, assets under management, how much money they're managing. You want to talk to anyone managing $750 million or more. You go make one friend with a financial advisor managing $750 million or more, and you're good. You know why? Because people move when they have life events. It's the only reason they move. They get a job, they lose a job, they find love, they get divorced, they get rich, they get poor, they make good decision, they make a bad decision. They move because they have life events. They retire, they have an 11th kid, all that stuff. These people are involved in the life events before you are. That's how I would do it. Does that help?
I appreciate it.
Any questions on that about dealing with rich people? Okay. Rich people. Great. Okay, let's talk about investors, wealth, and clarity on dreams. Before we can cover wealth, you got to cover the path of money, which for 10 of you or 15 of you or 20 of you, it's going to be a review. None of this is my content. Everything I'm about to tell you was written by Gary. And you should only take advice on wealth from really, really, really rich people. I'm not on social media. You can't find me. I'm not on it. I come out of retirement on Facebook before all of the Keller Williams national events. It's part of my contract. Like people want to take a picture and I love that, by the way. And so I do that. This last family reunion, I came out of cold storage on social media, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Look, you're probably desensitized to it because if you're on the Facebook, you don't realize how much it's changed. It's just like when you have a kid and someone who hasn't seen them in years says, "Oh my God, you've grown so much," and you're like, "They did?" You're decent. Here's my ahas from my first day back on the face pages. Number 1, everyone's rich. Everyone's rich. I saw realtors in front of jets and wearing red bottoms and like flossing ice at the. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. Everyone was rich. Number 2, everyone owned a coaching company. It was like insane. Like everyone, and they were like, send me $2,000 for my book on how to make a phone call. And I was like, oh my God, why would anyone pay any of these idiots? Like I couldn't believe it. I was blown away by that. And number 3, everyone's happier than me. Everyone was so happy. It was like the highlight reel of everyone's life. The only person who's unhappy is me. I couldn't believe it. Those are my 3 ahas. So I'm kind of analytical. So I decided I'm going to actually find out the math behind these things. So and thank gosh, I have the coolest job in the world. Gary pretty much lets me follow any of these trains of thoughts that I have and spend money to do research, and I get to just think all day. I'm the worst manager at Keller Williams, he'll tell you. I'm not allowed to manage anybody. It's just me and one other person. So my thinking gets on a lot of stuff, but I own none of the result. So I said to him, everyone's rich. And he said, I don't know if that's true. Go check. Hired a firm. Here's what they found out. In the world, there's 22.5 million people that we would classify as high net worth. Here's how I'm defining it. They have at least $1 million in cash investable asset, excluding the equity in their home and value of collectibles. So you can't like count your Beanie Baby collection. You gotta have $1 million in cash or cash-like assets to go do something with. There's only 22.5 million people in the world that fit that description. There's 7 billion people. That blew me away because everyone looked rich. They're not. Because math, none of them are. So when you leave here today, Facebook calls it the minutes in the middle. So in the middle of waiting in line in Starbucks, you know how you scroll Facebook really quick? When you add up all the minutes in the middle, the average American spends 52 minutes a day. It's a lot of minutes. The next time you do it, will you remind yourself that no one you're looking at is rich? It'll change your entire social media experience. Of the 22.5 million, a third of them live in the United States. The other 2/3 are spread over the entire planet. Warren Buffett calls that winning the ovarian lottery. If you were born or managed to somehow get to this country, your chances of being wealthy are infinitely higher than anywhere else on the planet. Not because of how I feel about America, because math. Does that make sense? Okay, so now you look up and you realize really quickly, no one's really rich, infinitesimally small percentage of the globe. You have a better chance of being it if you're here than anywhere else. So if you're anything like me, what you're thinking is, okay, well, how did the people that got rich get that way? I'm glad you asked. I asked too. Here's how they got there. If you're a note taker, I'm going to give you the #1 way around the entire planet that people got rich. Are you ready? Best note of the day. Inheritance. I know. It's genius. It's the greatest model there is. I've been trying to get the Keller family to adopt me now for 5 years, but they like their son. So I'm out. But that's an amazing thing. Inheritance. Who would have thought? By the way, here's what the model shows. If you are one of the people that's going to inherit a lot of money, the #1 thing you should be doing is spending more time with the rich person that's going to give it to you. I know that sounds dumb, but that's the #1 piece of advice from people that have inherited money. So if you're the one in this room, you shouldn't be in this room. You should be with that person, golfing or getting them something to drink. If you're not going to inherit money, because it's hard to duplicate that model, you'd want to know what the second group is. The second group, own a business, which everyone in this room does. Whether you're a business of 1 or 100, it's own a business. The third group, investing in real estate. They classify it as real estate and stock speculation, but the majority of it is real estate. We also don't have a single stock expert in this room, because math. So I would stick with real estate if I was you. Okay, cool. Well, so just to understand, as you start to talk about wealth, you're in pole position in the second way and the third way that the richest people on the planet make their money. You couldn't be in a better spot other than being the offborn of someone really wealthy. You're doing great. You should feel really good right now. So then your question would be, okay, great, I'm in pole position. Now how do I actually do it? Here's how you do it. Gary says that at the top of this thing, we have cash. I started this by telling you the only reason I sell houses is to make it. That's right. Once you make it, there's only 4 things you can do with it. You can spend it, which you're all experts, so am I. I'm very good. You can give it away. That's to charity. By the way, Keller Williams agents give more money to charity than any other real estate company on the planet. And I want to thank all of you for doing that. I'm wildly, wildly impressed. The next thing that you can do is you can save it under a mattress or in a bank account. You can save it. And then the last thing you can do is invest it. I defy you to think of anything else you can do with money. The only other one that I've heard happened recently in Brazil when inflation went to 200%. People actually fashioned clothing out of the currency. And that doesn't make the list, but that's it. That's all you can do. So cool, here's what I would guess. Everyone in this room knows how to spend it. You all know how to give it away, and you all know, at least you understand, what you would have to do to save it. The vast majority of people get wrapped around the axle and confused around what invest means. Invest is really easy, it turns out. Gary says there's only two ways to invest: passively and actively. Cool, let's cover passive first. Passive is stocks, and by the way, the reason that's passive is none of you are going to own enough common stock of a publicly traded company to change the direction of that firm. Bonds. The reason it's passive is because once you buy it, your job is done. The only other person that has to perform is the person who has to pay you back. There's nothing you can do to change the yield during it. It's passive. I'm going to draw an infinity sign here. This stands for every other banking product there is. REITs, it's a great one. It's passive. You send their money, hope for the best. Long-term CDs, sweep accounts, you name it, that's all passive. You do realize that every time you do any of these things, all you're doing is lending your money. You're just a lender. You're just lending it and hoping for the best. On active, the first one is own a business. The second one is lend. Lending actively is different than lending passively. Lending actively is like hard money, where you're literally looking for people that are willing to pay a higher yield because they think they can make more money with your money than you can. That's all it is. Real estate. Real estate is an active sport. It's 100% active. For the most part, friends, that's how you can invest your money actively. And on business, it's either yours or somebody else's. Everyone follow me? No matter which you choose, passive or active, the result is always the same, if you get it right. More cash. It throws off money, right? That would be the whole point. Great. All that happens now is it comes back up here, and instead of the word cash, you now have cash flow. You ever play that game as a kid, Planko, where you drop the ping pong ball down and it goes through and it ends up in a cup? That's the Planko board of life. Turns out you're all playing a game for 7-year-olds. That's it. Anybody who wants it to be more confusing than this is either trying to sell you a book or sell you coaching. It's just not any more confusing than this. And but there's 2,000 books on investing. They all say this. They just all say it a little different. That's all it is. So now you got choices to make. Okay, if I was going to invest in the stock market, how much money would I make? Well, over the last 50 years, the stock market, and I'll even tighten it a little bit and go with the S&P 500, it's returned about 9% a year over time, annually. There's only been 1 year that it returned exactly 9% out of the last 50. So this isn't an exact science, it's a science over time. But over a long enough period of time, that's going to get you 9% on your money. If you use that as kind of a governor and a yardstick, here's the focusing question. If you can't make more than 9% on your money in a deal, should you do the deal? I don't know. Gary wouldn't. One of Gary's criteria is I have to be able to make more money with being active than I can in just an index fund that's going to average 9%. So I can't do anything that I make less than 9 points on, which right away crosses out a ton of the deals that people bring them. That might not be your investment thesis. That's just part of his. That makes sense to me. So now that you understand this, you got some choices to make. You've all chosen how you're going to make your cash. You're in the real estate business. Now, how do you decide what you're going to invest in? Here's how I think about it. This is not, none of these are my thoughts. They're all other people. This one I got, Brett Tanner taught me this in a really roundabout way. I'll tell you how he taught me in a minute. Here's what he said. He said, Jason, you look at every opportunity as if it's unique. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, you hear a great idea or you come up with a great idea and then you go crazy and spend so much time thinking about it and analyzing it and is it a good deal or if it isn't. And I don't have time for that, and neither do most rich people. And I said, well, how do you make a choice? Here's what I've come up with. In life, there is a series, there's only 3 of these choices you have to make as you're trying to figure out what you're going to invest in. The first one is profit, 0 to 10. Every single investment that you look at or asset class will yield a return, or you wouldn't be looking at it. Some of them yield low returns, and some of them yield high returns. That doesn't make any of them bad. You just have to know the type of return that you're comfortable with, and most people never figure that out. Because most people look up and want to hit an absolute home run. And so if it isn't over here, they don't want to do it. I'm not that person. I'll tell you who I'm in a second. The next one, decibel level. How loud is it? Noise is the thing in your life that causes burnout. So when I think of noise, think of it like this. How many times per week is someone going to be in my office crying? Well, okay, I think a real estate team, by the way, is an amazing way to make profit. If you run it right, I think it's a 10. But I also think it's a 10 on noise, because I get 3 criers a week. It's the loudest business on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. Like, it's like unbelievable. It's like we're all firefighters who only choose to work with arsonists. Like, it's a wacky thing. And the last one here, 10 and 0, barrier. That's a B, sorry. Barrier to entry. So at different times in your life, you're going to have different assets. At this point in my life, I have far more cash than time. But a while back, I had far more time than cash. Neither of those things are right. Neither of them are wrong. Neither is good. Neither is bad. It just changes the barrier to entry for different deals. So if you said to me right now, Jason, I got the greatest deal in the world. It's a 10 on profit. It's a 0 on noise, but I need you personally 30 hours a week. I can't cross that barrier because I got a W-2 job with a really demanding guy. I can't take that opportunity. When we think about this with investing, what's the easiest thing to invest in real estate? And I'll save you the time. It's a single family home. Like, the entire country has conspired to make getting a mortgage on a single family home easier than almost any other country on the planet. And you all know this. It's the easiest thing to buy. So if I put single family home here, what would I put over here? Maybe like an oil well in a highly regulated area. Very profitable, by the way. Pretty noisy unless you love the EPA. Really hard to get done. Do you understand how this one works? Great. So as you're sitting here now, if you're a note taker, where do you fall on these things? For me, if I can make profit anywhere between a 2 and a 4, I feel really good about it. Noise can't be any higher than a 3. I'm a 2 to a 3 on noise. And barrier, I don't care how hard it is anymore. I have the time, the resources, the money, and I can find someone with the expertise. That's who I am as a human. So knowing who you are here informs the type of things that you'll be able to invest in. I know this feels like slowing down, but if you don't go through this exercise, you're going to end up with a junk drawer of investments. You're going to have a house over here, a little 401k over here. I did this year for an IRA to beat the tax man, and I ended up with a duplex in Buckeye. Okay, that sounds like a junk drawer to me. It's not bad that you have that. Most of us end up with a junk drawer at some point before figuring out what we want. So now you go through this exercise. Does everyone follow this? This is step 1. And by the way, this is kind of high level because this doesn't change whether you're trying to invest $1,000 or $1 billion.
Let's use the junk drawer analogy.
Yeah.
Occasionally
Yeah.
Right? Same thing would apply there, right? You just want to reevaluate and say, okay, time has moved on. I'm in a different
I've changed.
I've taken a very different position. Where were you 10 years ago? Same place?
I was 10 years ago, I had just unpacked the junk drawer. I had bought like a couple hundred single family homes at the peak of the market. The market had crashed. I had wrapped all of them into one giant commercial loan, and I spent the next decade of my life pretty much working for the bank to pay them back. So 10 years ago, I was broker, smarter, and reloaded and ready to go. And that was kind of how I went to try to figure this all out. Because what I didn't want, again, was a junk drawer, because here's the mistake I made. I went out and I bought single-family houses because that was the business that I knew. What I didn't realize was that that's one of the loudest businesses there is, because number one, I don't like management companies. I just haven't had great experiences. They're probably different here than they are everywhere else in the country. But I didn't do so great with them. I didn't think they treated my homes like theirs. I just didn't like it. I also hated tenants calling me. Like people, here's how I knew I was done with that. Someone called and said, there's a leak in my bedroom. And I said, move your bed. And then I was like, what? Move your bed? Who am I? That call woke me up, and another call woke me up. I got a call at 2:30 in the morning from a young lady who had rented a house from me. And I answered the phone, woke me up out of a dead sleep. And here's what she said. The house exploded, all the cats are dead. And I had just woken up, and my only response, which I'm still so angry with myself, I said, you're not allowed to have pets. It just came out. It just came out. And then I was like, I don't like who I'm becoming in order to be in this investment class. And I had to unwind all that. So you got to clean the drawer. But here's ultimately what you need to figure out. Everybody that makes a lot of money in wealth figures out the next 4 things I'm going to tell you. And here's the test, right? Gary does this. You guys are all so far past this, but he teaches Quantum Leap for young people. So we define young people now as up to 27 because most of them are still living at home with their parents. And that's funny if you're 27. Anyway, what he does is he holds up his phone. And he says, okay, everybody, if I was going to sell you this phone for $25, would that be a good deal? Play along. I know you guys are not kids, but yeah, okay, great. If I was going to sell it to you for $100, would that be a good deal?
Yes.
10,000. No. Great. Then he holds up, he finds some kid and he grabs his Nikes and says, if I was going to sell you this pair of Nikes, both shoes, for $15 brand new, would that be a good deal? Yes. $25. Yes. 1,000. No. Right. And then he says, here's what you've just demonstrated. You've all mastered the value of bullshit. And the kids are all like, he swore. And he does it for effect. And here's what he ultimately ends up saying. Everybody masters the art of valuing things that don't matter. The rich people only master 2 things. Stuff that goes up in value and stuff that throws off positive cash flow. That's the only thing that they master. By the way, there was a great interview with the Microsoft guy, with Gates. I don't know if you saw it. It became a meme. It was a joke. They asked him like how much a carton of eggs was and how much orange juice was and would you pay $25 for this? And he had no concept of what stuff at the grocery store cost. No clue. He thought that $20 for eggs seemed reasonable. And Google this. You can watch the video. It's hysterical. And everyone made fun of him for it. Oh, he's so out of touch. He's wildly in touch with the 2 things that matter. Stuff that goes up in value and stuff that throws off cash flow. And you know how I learned that lesson? I sent it to Gary and said, look at this idiot, ha ha ha. And Gary said, I want to see you in my office tomorrow morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, why don't we skip it? And he was like, and I got there and he goes, why did you think that guy was an idiot? And I said, he doesn't even know what eggs cost. How out of touch can you be? And that's when he taught me that whole lesson. And I was like, there it is. Oh my gosh. So once you get there, here's what you need. Number 1, avatar. I'll explain it in a minute. Number 2, location. Number 3, model. Number 4, deal flow. Now, some of you in this room that are on your wealth journey are going to think the things I'm about to tell you are overly simplistic. But let me just tell you this. I got them from a billionaire who said this is all you need. And so you do you. I love that journey for you if you're going to be smarter than the guy with all the money. But this is pretty much what he said. Avatar in this, if you're like defining these words, avatar is the type of asset class you're going to buy. So you can't just say real estate. There's so much of it and it all behaves differently. What do we got? We got single family homes, we have duplexes, we have triplexes, we have quads, we have full-on apartment buildings. We have vacant land, we have short-term rentals, we have commercial, which then you have a whole new subsection. You have retail, you have office, you have manufacturing and industrial. You have trailer parks, and we're just talking real estate for a second. You have assemblage. I mean, there's so many different asset classes within real estate, and that's the same for everything, and they all behave different. Being a landlord for a single-family home in Chandler is different than owning an industrial building in the air park. Bless you. Do we all agree on that? And it's not just different because of the price. It's different for the way it behaves. You're very rarely going to get a phone call on a Saturday from someone who you've rented your industrial building to on a triple net lease. You are going to get it from someone who lives in the house in Chandler. It's just a question of what Saturday it comes. It behaves different. That's why you have to know who you are and how you want the things to behave, or you're going to get what you get. These are the people that say, I was a landlord, the investment sucks, don't invest in real estate. All they're really saying is I bought the wrong thing that didn't match with who I am. Avatar. Next, location. Where am I going to buy this asset class? This is so important. I actually always use Arizona as the example when I teach this around the country. Because I always say, hey, if I had an oceanfront piece of property in Arizona, would you buy it? People are like, there's no ocean in Arizona, Jason. And I'm like, 100%. But if I had an unincorporated piece of land in North Scottsdale where you could triple your money, would you buy that? And no one knows what that even means because that's stupid. You're the only place that has it. And people say, yeah, maybe. What they don't know is how hard it is to do anything with an unincorporated piece of land in North Scottsdale. Now, you make yourself crazy trying to figure, you all know how hard that is. But they don't know the location so they can be sold something that doesn't make any sense. You have to know enough about the location to truly understand, write it down, the value. Because you make your money when you buy it, not when you sell it. Gary has made more than $50 million in one zip code in Austin. I'm always tempted to be like, well, sure you have. You have all this money. It's easy to make more money when you have money. The first $2 million that he ever made was buying a piece of property on the corner in his own zip code, which was residential, changing it to commercial, and selling that piece of land to a builder. He made $2 million on that deal. That blows me away. It's because he knows his area. The next one, model. In my asset class, in the locations I'm willing to buy them, what's the math that makes sense? If you don't know what math makes sense, you have to analyze every single deal as if it's the first time. Here's what you realize very, very quickly. Once you know the avatar and once you get your locations, the math gets very simple, very narrow, very quick. I can pay X per square foot, not a penny more. I can pay X per door, not a penny more. I can pay X per rentable foot, not a penny more. There's a bunch of different ways to figure out your numbers, but you have to figure out the numbers so you don't treat each deal as an emotional adventure. Because here's what happens. As you get more and more deal hungry, every deal gets emotional. It's probably not the same for you as it is for me. But you get emotional about real estate because we're in the business. And you agonize it. A good deal, is it not a good deal? Should I do it? Should I not? Yeah, no. You got to have your model so that you can look at a bunch of deals fast. The last one, and this is the one that trips everybody up. Deal flow. Deal flow is the key to all of it. Here's how you define deal flow. How many opportunities of my avatar in the areas that I'm willing to buy them that meet my model come across my desk each week? It's simple. It's simple. How many of the things I want to buy in the areas I'm willing to buy them that fit my math come across my desk each week? If you want to make a lot of money investing in real estate and you have zero deal flow, it's not going to work out for you. It would be the same thing if you said to me, Jason, my whole mission in life is to meet somebody that I can spend time with, my soulmate. And I said, I love that. How many new people do you meet a week? None. Okay, you got a problem. You need J-date or something. Like you're going to have to go do something different. You're going to have to create some deal flow or you're going to be lonely. Not by nature of no one liking you, but by nature of you not meeting anybody. This is simple. You only have to make 4 choices. Does this make sense? Okay, so how do we break it down and make it so that you actually take action on it as opposed to just listening to it? Because I know it's logically simple, but most people don't get any richer. So here's how I do it. Number 1, go through this exercise. Start at the bottom. This will inform you really quickly what asset classes you can even look at. Because by the way, if you said to me, Jason, I want to buy skyscrapers in New York, and I was like, great, how much money do you have to invest? And you said $33,000. We know that we're not crossing the barrier to go do that. We can't start there. But I'll tell you what, if you have $33,000, we can start with single family home all day long. We can start with land all day long. You can become partners and go do a commercial building all day long. But you have to think about what it is you want to go invest in. Does that make sense? Any questions on this concept?
I have a question. So to use your scenario, I'm just an everyday person out in the world trying to find my avatar.
Yeah.
Super overwhelming. I've got $33,000. Who do I go talk to even know what barriers I can cross?
The question was, who do I go talk to figure out which barriers I can cross and which avatar I should use? This is going to sound dumb, but it's almost even more simple than that. Because you all know the real estate business. And the reason that you're not buying more investment property or doing more deals is probably because you don't have any good deals to do. Like, if you had a great deal, finding the money to do it would not be a problem. I can guarantee you that. By the way, anybody in here that has a great deal, I'm just guessing, call Kristan, call Jim, call me. Like, the money's the easy part. So remove that as a barrier. It just might mean that you don't do the first deal by yourself. I'll give you a great example. In KW Wealth, we have somebody who was flipping houses. And by flipping houses, I mean they had done 2. And they had a buddy who saw it and said, look, I want to get in on this house flipping thing. And he said, great, here's the deal. You put up the money, I'll do everything else, we'll split the profits. That relationship worked like that for 4 years until this person was finally making enough money that said, hey, I don't need your money anymore. I'm sending it back to you, best wishes, and now self-funds their own properties. So don't get wrapped around the axle with barriers. For most residential real estate agents, the deal flow is going to be in residential real estate. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's what we're already in. Who in here is sending postcards right now in any sort of way to any neighborhood? Anybody? Sending postcards. You send any kind of mail to any neighborhood. Great. The challenge with investing in deal flow in residential real estate is most of the type of stuff you want to buy isn't owned by people in your SOI. So you go on a listing appointment and your first question isn't, hey, do I want to buy this house? That's not it. You probably don't want to invest in their home. So you got to create deal flow another way. So once you figure out what you want to buy and where you're willing to buy it, you could start a postcard campaign and all it would say is, I want to buy your house. I know you think that sounds silly because you get those in the mail and discard them, but you do realize that thousands of people every single day call those numbers and sell their homes, right? I mean, they just do. So if you discount it, it's at your own peril. It's the same exact tools that you have before. It's just prospecting. But it's prospecting for the type of thing that you want to purchase. That's it. That's how I would think about it. Any questions on this? I wish I could tell you more about it.
Do you feel like when we got into short-term rental, I was wanting a really nice beach house, bougie,
Yeah,
not in my budget.
right.
So a friend of mine who was doing condos sat down with me and said, let's talk this through, and she showed me the difference of maintenance on a beach house as opposed to maintenance on a condo. So we wound up investing in condos as well. And
Yeah, I think.
it was having somebody there that kind of helped walk me through because I was kind of like,
Yeah, well, if you're going to buy look, I don't think you can buy anything that you don't understand. And so I think if you're going to buy something in a different state, you actually have to go there, see it, and live that lifestyle long enough to truly understand it.
Well, it's helpful too because you were saying to me, and this is for short-term rentals, you want wet, you want a pool, you want an ocean, you want a lake. You have round year-round. I mean, there are things that I just had not thought about.
100%.
That just helps me.
Yeah, and that became your avatar. Yeah. I don't do short-term rentals, so that wouldn't be my asset class. By the way, and I'll only tell you because maybe it'll be somewhat instructive. When I did this analysis for myself, I had no idea what avatar to buy. I simply started talking to real estate investors and saying, "Hey, this is who I am. I want to make a little bit of money on something that doesn't make any noise, and I have plenty of cash. What should I do?" And I asked everyone that I knew that was buying investment real estate, and someone said you should buy manufacturing buildings on triple net leases. So the tenant takes care of the building, people go there and make stuff with their hands, you sit back and collect the rent. I was in, and that's what I've been buying ever since. So that's how I found my avatar.
Brett Tanner pays people to find the deals for him, right?
She said Brett Tanner pays people to find the deals. So does Gary.
All the time, depending, is Huntington,
Yeah.
Alabama.
So she asked about Brett's Huntington, Alabama. By the way, I got a call from Brett. He and I were business partners years ago. And he said, "Hey, we're going to Huntington, Alabama, and we're going to make a fortune." And I said, "I don't even know how to spell that. I've never been there. There's no chance I'm doing that, and you're going to lose all your money." Click. If you know the rest of Brett's story, I think he made like $6 million. It was great. I didn't make any. And here's what I learned that day, right? He was willing to go to Huntington, hang out, meet people, and take that risk because he got comfortable enough. By the way, for me, that was just too high of a barrier. I couldn't wrap my head around that. It doesn't make either of us wrong. It makes him a little richer at the moment. But neither of us were wrong. Gary has a gentleman named Mitch who he pays to find him all of his deals. Brett has a group. I hired 3 years ago a guy named Rob. Here's how I thought about it. I have to wake up every day and make cash. And the best way that I know how to do that is to trade my skill set for money, selling houses and working. I needed to hire somebody who wanted to wake up every day and go create deal flow and look for investment opportunities. And I didn't know how to pay that person. So I found a real estate agent at my KW office who clearly was not going to make it as a residential realtor, but who had a background in writing commercial loans. And that was perfect because I didn't know much about the commercial business. And here's the deal I made with him. And I think this is a duplicatable model. I paid him $3,000 a month salary to go lead generate for these buildings that I wanted to buy. Same thing Gary did with Mitch. He paid Mitch $4,000 a month to lead generate inside of one zip code. Then at the end of every day, Mitch would walk into Gary and say, these are all the calls I made, here are the deals I uncovered. I made Rob do the same thing. Anything Gary buys, he gives Mitch 20% of. It's Gary's money, Mitch's time, expertise, and everything else. Everything that Rob finds that I buy, it started as a finder's fee, and now we are equal partners. So all the buildings that we own together. He wakes up every day trying to find more of them. I don't think that's a stretch for anyone in this room. Because here's what I know. You got 1.5 million real estate agents, half of which will not sell a single home this year. That's not negative, that's just the math of it. If you're in this room and you haven't sold your first one this year, you're in the right place and you will. That said, you can't tell me that that group, the 750,000 that won't, might not be great at what I just described. They just might be waiting for you to give a little direction and teach them this so that they can go off and run. Because you teach this to the right person, you might be done on your wealth journey, and then it might just be meeting with the person that you have out there working for you every day. Meaning you could start at the 7th level, quote unquote, in this. Well, that we could debate. That's why I looked at you. Like, you could just start at the end as opposed to putting in your time. I hope that helped. Any other questions about this?
Yeah, Jason. I know what the sound is best is going to sound. I know it's going to sound. How many avatars can you operate?
I don't know the answer. I can't do more than one of anything. And I also don't, I think for some folks, Gary's avatar is anything that makes money in one zip code. That's why he's got a car wash, he's got hotels, he's got the juice bar, he's got the concert venue. He has all this stuff in one zip code. It all makes money. What? That's his avatar. Anything in this zip code that makes money. My avatar is a specific type of building in 3 different states. And within those states, it's like 11 counties. Mainly because I'm not trying to build $1 billion fund. To hit my goals, I can just do one thing average, and I can be fine.
So like having the avatar for like syndication, you're looking for syndication. That would be one.
That would be one.
Another one could be that you're looking to be a hard money lender.
That could be one also. Although I think you'll find with hard money, the more hard assets you own, the easier it is to get into hard money because you just start lending the equity in those properties. That said, any one of them could be an avatar. By the way, there's a couple of new avatars that are coming out right now that I've never seen in our industry. People that are investing in other people's real estate teams and businesses has never happened before. You're living through it now for the first time. And I think that's fascinating. A whole new avatar? No, I never would have thought of that. Anybody else?
Could you elaborate on that? Just for like 30 seconds.
Elaborate on people investing in other people's teams?
Yeah.
Well, you're starting to see it, right? You're seeing money from outside of the industry start to invest in people's real estate businesses, a la Homeward with Tim Heil, or Place with Ben, and Livian with Adam. And you're starting to see people making those bets. And you're also starting to see real estate agents who look up. And I literally just did a call on this last week. There was a real estate agent who said, I'm getting kind of tired of the business. And so here's what I want to do. I found someone else in the office that's running a team. I'm going to kind of merge with that team by giving them my database and an infusion of cash. And I'm going to get a percentage of the profit that business makes. Which is really simple to say, but I never thought you would start to see that happen. And for the first time ever, I think you're starting to see real estate agents build businesses that have scalable cash events tied to the end. And I think that's one of the coolest things that the industry has ever done. I can't believe it's happening. Can't believe it. Any other questions on this? Is this helpful for anybody? You never know if you're up here, if anyone's getting it, but that's how he explained it to me, and I thought it was genius when he did. Please don't overcomplicate it. It can be on one page. Your entire investment thesis and business plan can be on one page. You don't need like a giant book or anything. You just need to know what the hell you're doing so you can go do it. Okay, so now you did the flow of money. So now you're making money. We talked about the flow of it, and we talked about how to go and invest it. We have a choice to make. We can diverge. We can go back to the board, or we can talk about how to set up your banking in such a way so that you actually build more of a war chest to invest. Do you guys want to cover that, or you want to keep going? Because it's slightly dry, but I don't think most people are putting their money into the right accounts at the right time. What I think is happening, and it's probably it's probably not you guys, it's other realtors, but what I think they do is this is their family checking. Who in here has an estate planner? Anybody? Awesome. I'm going to simplify the heck out of an estate plan for those of you that don't have one, and those of you that do, I'm going to encourage you to put it all on one page instead of that giant binder that your person gave you. I saw this drawing, by the way, hanging in Mitch's office, his version of it. I saw a version of it hanging in Gary's office. I now have a version of it hanging in my office. If you can draw this for yourself, I would tell you to hang it up. You'll get richer just by looking at your drawing each day. I'm drawing the wrong way first, so you don't have to take notes on this. This is what I see from most real estate agents. They put commission into their checking account. From there, they pay bills. Then they consume stuff, food, Apple Watches, red bottoms. You just stuff. You just consume stuff. Then some retirement. You send something to retirement. Then you save some. And I'm saying some because I can't make any rhyme or reason out of the percentages of the numbers, and it changes every single month based on the amount you have in here. And then every now and then you pay some taxes, every third year. This is what I think is happening right now. And this person walks around saying, I want to invest more. I want to build wealth. This is, again, it's probably not you guys. But I know this is the default for most people in our industry. That's never going to work, ever. That's the slow boat to jalapa. It's always going to be miserable. There's a better way to do this. And here's what it is. Wealth coordination account. It's just an account. And here are the steps you go through. First step, you draw a square. Going good? Great. On this side, I want you to start listing all of the ways that you make money. And I want you to put them in rectangles. I'm going to do mine with you. I make money at a W-2 job. I work for KWRI. I make money on rental income. I make money consulting. Real estate agents. They'll call me and say, I got a wicked problem, and I'll say, great, I can solve it. And they say, how much? And I say, this much, and I solve it. I make money on profit share. I could keep going. When we played this game with Gary, we listed over 150 different rectangles that he had. Blew my mind. It took more than a page. It doesn't matter how many you have, that's where they live. Everyone good on that part? Great. Now, over here, we got to spend some money. This is bills. So, here's how you figure this out. Every one of us in this room has a monthly burn rate. You have one for your business and one for your life. So, the question is, how much money do you burn every month? Now, before you write it, there's a caveat. Not how much you wish you burnt. Not how much you'd burn if you lived the right way, quote unquote. But what do you actually burn? Because I'm tired of trying to convince people to spend less and live on a budget. Like, forget all, how about we just make more? So, what does it actually cost you to live on a monthly basis? Write that right here, relatively small. For this human, I'm going to say it costs them $10,000 a month. Whatever your number is what your number is. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just what it is. Over here, I want you to draw another box. The good news is you'll be done drawing boxes in a minute. This right here is savings. The reason we have savings is because shit happens. That's it. It's the same reason you have an umbrella. It's going to rain. So let me just be the first to tell you, you are going to have an emergency. Now, we have to start by defining what an emergency is. And so here's the rule for savings. If you are in a relationship with another human that you've decided to spend your life with, the two of y'all have to sit in, or three of y'all, I make no judgment. You have to sit in a room. You got to sit in a room and you got to agree on what's an emergency. And you got to do it on the front end. Here's what, if you don't, anything you can convince yourselves is an emergency. Well, we got to go to Disney. He's getting too old. Not an emergency in my house. Might be one in yours. No judgment. You just write emergency equals vacation. I'm fine with that journey. What I'm not fine with is you not defining it. This is why people spend their emergency savings on junk, because you don't define it. Gary said this. He said that we're common people separated by common words. Meaning when you hear a word, you all assume that people think it means what you think it means. Think of it like this. Someone looks at you and says, I love you. For some people, that means I want to spend tonight with you. For other people, it means I'd like to spend my life with you. Same words. You'll want to know what they mean. Same with emergency savings. Here's how you figure out what this number should be. You take your total burn rate and you multiply it by a number that makes you comfortable. For me, 6 months. For you, it might be less. By the way, when I was younger, it was 1 month. I figured I'm good. I can hustle my way out of anything if I have 30 days to figure it out. That's changed as I've gotten all this new hair. 6 months. So for me, in this example, that's going to be $60,000. Everyone with me so far? Okay. Now here's what happens. At the end of every month, all of the money from all these different places, minus whatever you need to operate the businesses, gets swept into this account. It's easy. It just takes a slight detour over here first for taxes as a percentage. This is the last account that you need. And everyone always says to me, how much do I put in for taxes? Now, there's 3 ways to plan for taxes. You're either overfunding, underfunding, or not funding. That's it. No one has to get emotional about it. Those are the choices. At different times in my life, I've chosen to do different things. Right now, for me, I generally put 45% of every dollar I make over here in the hopes that the government takes it from me and misuses it. Whatever percentage, it's there. Cool. Now here's what ends up happening. Every month you're going to have these bills, right? So you know that you're going to be sending money here. After that, you send 100% of what's ever left to fill this. And in some period of time, this will now be full. How will you know it's full? It'll have $60,000 in it, which means we never have to think about this again. It's now full all the way to the brim with money. We're good. Now what's going to start to happen? Well, on a month where we make $15,000, 10 of it's going to go here, and now there's going to be $5,000 that stays in this account. Does everyone agree? Cool. The next month we make 15. Cool. This now goes up to 10. The next month we make none. Nothing changes. Right? The next month we only make 8. Okay. I'm going to have to fund it with 2, so now I'm down to here. Does everyone follow this? So this thing starts to go, hopefully, up in income. And at some point you are going to have an amount of money in here. And you will know that it's time to go invest in something. How will you know it's time? Here's how you'll know. depending on the avatar that you picked, you will need a certain amount of cash to buy that thing. So if you said to me, Jason, I'm going to buy single-family houses for $250,000 a piece, and I have a lender that's going to do a 70% LTV. What's 30% of 200,000? Great. So the minute that this is full and this has 60K in it, you're ready to go buy that house. Does everyone agree? Awesome. If that's your first one, guess what? You get to add a new square over here. Okay, here we go. New house, more rental income. As long as that's positive cash flowing, what happens the month after you buy it? And there we go. At some point, you're going to have another 60 in here, right? What do you do then? Great. Now we're going to add another square, another rectangle. Rental income. And here we go. Now, what naturally ends up happening is the more times you do that, the faster this bucket fills. As long as you're buying things that produce positive cash flow. Does that make sense? Great. So if one of these things for you is a bond that you bought that pays 4%, I love that. The 4% comes back here, helps build this back up. When you get to the right number, you go buy more of it. This is it. This is the estate plan for everybody. And there's 3 things you wake up every day and watch. You wake up every day and you watch the number of rectangles that you have that earn you a green arrow every month. That's the first thing you watch. Second thing you watch, how close am I to the line to go buy my next rectangle? And the third thing you watch, as I'm getting richer, is this spending number growing? Because if it is, I have to be cognizant of the fact that I'm making a longer road to invest every day. Most people start making more money and they start spending more money. That's why you watch this. I visit this every week. Here's what he told me. He said, Jason, if you're ever going to be rich, you have to set a half-hour meeting with yourself every single week to work on your wealth. He said that's the easiest habit for anyone that wants to be wealthy. And I said, but I don't have any wealth. What am I going to do for a half hour? He said, you're going to sit there and think about how much you want it. You're going to sit there and lead generate for it. You're going to sit there and get clear on where the hell you are so you can figure out where you want to go. And as you start going, now all of a sudden your half hours get filled up. You start looking at each of these properties. Am I getting the most out of this? Is there an extra? I'll tell you a great example of this. We had a realtor who had 4 single-family homes that she had bought. She's a brilliant person. She was sitting there and she said, if I put shacks, for lack of a better word, but if in the backyard, if I put a freestanding building that they could use for storage, would each of my tenants pay another $150 a month for it? She said, I don't know. She called them and asked them. 3 of the 4 said yes. She bought those units for $600 a piece from Home Depot. The return on that is absolutely insane. And you look up and say, an extra $150 a month isn't that much money. Okay, 150 times 3 houses forever is. And all of a sudden, she's going. That's what she does for her half hours. Other people spend their half hours thinking about their taxes. How do I pay less in taxes? And by the way, if you have an accountant, I just want to tell you, your accountant is not spending any time thinking about your taxes. Very, very little. Here's how you know. You're probably different than me, but I pay like somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200 per tax return. Is that close to what it is in Arizona? Great. So how many tax returns does your accountant have to do to become a millionaire this year? They want to make $1 million too, I'm guessing, or they wouldn't bother learning how to be an accountant. So for them, it's just a numbers game. They think of your tax returns the same way you think of condominiums. They're just units to them. So what would be a great use of this time if you're already making a little bit of money? maybe you go and you invest, buy a package, a 5-hour package with a tax attorney, and each week spend a half hour asking this tax attorney, what's going on in the tax world? What do you think I should be doing differently? Gary does that weekly. I think it's so smart and easy to do. Any questions on this?
So where do you have your emergency fund, right?
Where do I have that?
Where do you have
Oh, yeah.
How can you create it to add to the
Well,
fund?
for me, I have it in a high yield interest account. It's yielding out at 4.2% right now. Morgan Stanley in those accounts. Yeah, it's cash. You just because we all sit around and complain that rates are going up, so no one's buying houses. The good news is if you have any savings, rates are going up. So you're now making money on your money for doing nothing, and that just sits, and you know that dotted lines up, and there it goes. Anybody else? Is anybody thinking about the flow of their personal money differently after seeing this? Thank you for saying that. By the way, I know this is dry, and it's like, okay, there's nothing except when's he going to tell me like to live a better life and play more golf? There are these. Think about all of this as the Lego pieces of your life. Like you got to start putting these pieces together, or you're just going to get what you get. Yeah.
It's the compound effect of things, and the Prophet first book goes over this in a different way, but it's basically the same concept, which is awesome. And I lived it, so it works awesome.
Yeah, this one works. And by the way, no matter how rich somebody is, you're now Jedi. You can take, no matter how complicated somebody thinks their world is, because I meet people all the time and they're like, well, you possibly can't understand. I'm doing business in 3 different countries. I own these real estate teams. I got all this stuff. And I'm like, well, just explain it to me and I'll try. You can draw anybody's business into this on the planet. So you want to like do more business with rich people? You now know as much about the way that money should flow as the richest people in the world.
So how does that really differ if you're incorporated into real estate?
It doesn't at all. If you wanted to take it a step further, she said, how does it differ if you're incorporated in your real estate? For me, a lot of these things are going to be held in different corporations, building in LLCs, companies in LLPs. It doesn't really matter at all. The way that I think about it is that the businesses that I have here are all going to have 3 documents. It's really, really simple. I'll give them to you if you want. Number 1, it's going to have a profit and loss statement. All that is a time machine that looks backwards, that lets me look at whether the decisions I made were good or bad. It's all a profit and losses. Everyone's like, well, how do you use it? Here's all I look at it, and I simply say to myself, did I make enough money? No. What was the wrong decision I made? I promise you, it's in the P&L. Did I make a lot of money? Yeah. Good. What was the decision I made? It's in the P&L. It's the only thing I do with it. See, I have to simplify everything down to like insane level because I got a 1.8 GPA in high school and I can't spell or read so good. So like I still get the same tools that smart people get. I just have to figure out how they work for me. That's how I use a P&L. Number 2, I need to know where I am today. So show me my A buyers and my A sellers, my active listings and my active buyers. That's an example of I need to know where I am right now. For my rental property, I need to know what it's leased at today, occupied or vacant. I just need to know where I am right now. The last document I need a time machine that goes into the future. That's it. For me, it's an active sales pipeline. Show me all of the people in each of these categories that I'm going to do business with in the future. Not a database. I get that. I got a group of humans. Show me the ones where you can credibly tell me, I think they're going to transact in October. I think these people are going to transact in November. I don't know when these people are going to transact, but it's definitely in 2024. I'll even settle for that. I need to have some idea. The minute I have no idea, I just feel completely out of control of my life. I need an active sales pipeline in every business. And by the way, does anyone in here use Command? Because I don't want to bore you with Command if you don't use it. Okay, a handful of you. Here's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in Command in this regard. In opportunities, We have this thing called Cultivate. This agent went in and made a phase in Cultivate for every month. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, for 12 months. And every person that she's going to follow up with, she puts into the month that she's going to call them. And her whole model of following up is at the end of every month, she makes sure there's no one left in it. That's all she's doing. She's been in the business for 7 years. She started this model 2 years ago, and her business has tripled. And when I said, why do you think it tripled? She said, everything felt so complicated to me. This seems simple, and I call the people I need to call. That's it. I thought that was genius. That's an active sales pipeline looking for. So for me, if I have a corporation, I need those 3 things. That's the only difference. Perfect. Any other questions on that? Okay. Cool. So that was wealth, and that was also keeping it, because that's what you asked. I don't know another way to do it. The only other thing that I would add in for keeping it is to make sure that everything is properly insured. That's a whole different class. If you think this is boring, you'd really hate that one. But if you're all waiting for like the new fun stuff around wealth, there isn't any. That's the fun stuff around wealth. The question is how badly do you really want to be wealthy? You get to pick. How do I educate investors? Here's the model that I would use. I think that everybody right now has a ton of deals sleeping in their database because I really believe that the majority of people would love to own investment real estate. They just have no idea how. There's 2 models that I think are genius for it. The first one comes out of Coalition Property in DC. This dude's a genius. His sole focus in life and his entire marketing plan and his MOFR is the following. Everyone in my database is a millionaire. That's the whole goal for his company. And when I said to him, well, does that mean they're all rich? He said, no, I live in one of the poorest neighborhoods in DC. And I said, why? And he said, well, it's not going to be a poor neighborhood forever, and that's where I grew up. And I said, great, so what's your model? Here's what he said. He calls every person in his database, and he says, hey, my goal in life is to make every person in my database a millionaire. I actually have a plan to make you a millionaire. It won't cost you any money that you don't already have. It'll take me 15 minutes to explain it to you. Can we meet? Everyone says yes. He then goes, here's what he says. Step 1, I'm going to sell you a house. Now, look, I know that sounds self-serving, but it isn't. There's nothing else you can buy where a bank will loan you up to 100% of it that you get to then keep and make money on, other than real estate. That's why I got in. I'm going to sell you a house. If you're paying rent, you're paying 100% interest. I'm going to sell you a house. Wealth starts with owning a piece of America, not renting it. And they all said, okay, what's unique about that? He says, it gets better. 2 years after I sell you the house, I'm going to sell you another one. And you're going to move out of the one you're in, move up to the next one, and turn the one you're in into a rental. They say, okay. And he goes, a year after that, I'm going to sell you a duplex or a triplex. They say, okay. And he says, in 2 years after that, I'm going to sell you your next awesome, big, fat primary residence, and you're going to move another tenant into the house that you're leaving. Which means that over the course of 7 years, you're going to own 6 to 9 doors. And over time, it's a mathematical certainty you're going to be a millionaire. By the way, I think that's one of the most manipulative, brilliant scripts in all of real estate. I think it is genius what he does. He literally builds in 7 sales per person in his database. And his entire touch campaign is educating and teaching them for the next phase in their journey. So, as soon as you agree, he starts educating you about buying your first house. Then the minute you close, he starts educating you about being a landlord, because 2 years from now, you're going to be one when you buy your next home. Then as soon as he closes on that, he starts educating you on all the tax benefits of owning multifamily, because now you're going to buy the duplex or the triplex. And then right after that, he starts educating you on why you'd want to use a management company because now you have a bunch of doors. He just happens to own the management company. And then right after that, he starts sending you luxury real estate because the next home you're going to buy is the big fat one. Okay, what do you guys think of that? I couldn't believe it when I saw it. We gave that model away at Mega Camp last year. I don't know why more people haven't ran with it. I think it is absolutely genius. It bakes in 7 deals per person. That's how he went at that challenge. I think it was great. That's model number 1. Model number 2, you look up and say, I probably have enough people in my database today that want to start buying investment real estate. All you do is send them a survey. I'd use SurveyMonkey to do it. And I would ask them the following questions in this specific order. Number 1, do you have any interest in owning investment real estate? Yes or no? Number 2, would you like to yield positive cash flow each month from a piece of investment real estate? Yes or no? Positive cash flow. Would you like to yield positive cash flow from a piece of investment real estate each month? Yes or no? Number 3, if I found a piece of investment real estate that you could buy under market value, would you want me to tell you about it? If I could find the piece of investment real estate under market value, would you want me to tell you about it? Same page. I don't think, by the way, I don't think you can go wrong either way. I need all these questions answered, though. Each one is filtering the group down and hitting on different things for people, because the next one is the clincher. Would you want to buy this property this year? And if you want to say it differently, in the next 12 months. Would you want to buy this property in the next 12 months? So here's what you've done here. Number 1, the first question yielded out the people that were like, yeah, so you don't want to spend any time chasing the no's. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. You're not in life to explain to people why there's value. You're going to get your sub list straight away. The next one, who would ever answer no to that? So now you're getting the greed gland going and they're getting excited. Would you like some more money every month? Yes. Fantastic. If I found something that's under market value, would you want me to contact you? Yes. So now I got the opt-in to contact you. And if I start calling you and you don't take my call, now I'm the one that gets to be offended. But you told me to call. And the last one, would you want to do it this year? Anyone who's not doing something this year, I'll put into phase 2 of my life, which is if I have extra time, I'll get to you then. I'm looking for people who can help me make money now. That doesn't mean I forget about everybody else. It means that's how I prioritize. Now what's happened? Well, you've taken your giant data bank and you've segmented it down to the most ideal candidates within it. Now, here we go. Now with that group, it's super easy to educate them. And the way that I would educate them, by the way, is anyone that answered yes to all those, I'd call them. And I'd say, hey, you said that you would be more than happy to buy something today at under market value. And the truth is, I run into that kind of stuff all the time, but here's my problem. I run into houses that are under market value, and buildings that are under market value, and trailer parks that are under market value, and land that's... There's so many different things to buy. Have you given any thought to what type of stuff you would want to invest in? The minute you ask that question, and they say the most common answer, what do you mean? You now are teaching. And you're going to teach avatar, location, model, and deal flow. And here's what you're trying to do for them. Help them pick an avatar, which, by the way, for the vast majority of people in your database, it should be single-family homes. Help them pick a location, which should be relatively easy. It's going to be somewhere around here, just my guess. Help them understand their model. Don't complicate it. How much did I pay for it? What are my expenses every month? What is it rent for? Equals, does it make money or lose money? It doesn't have to be any harder than that. It's not any harder than that. Their answer to number 4, to deal flow, is you. They have no other path. They're the most captive audience on the planet. You see, if you did this with enough people in your database, here's what you'd realize. Every deal you don't want, somebody else wants it. You're in the catbird seat. This would be the most needed and useful thing you could ever do to somebody who's trying to build wealth. Be the number 4 to their top 3. Does that make sense? That's how I think about educating investors. Any questions on that? I don't know who asked that, but... Yeah.
A lot of them have a lot of fear of everything.
Yeah. He said a lot of them have any fear and everything. Here's the deal with fear in education. It's really, really easy. Has anyone in here ever taught a class? Great. Have you ever taught a class and you crush it, you literally like levitate during it, and you come back 90 days later and no one's life is any better? It's my worst fear in life, by the way. Here's why it happened, 9 times out of 10. It's because you taught a fearless method to a fearful room. So we teach things for 2 reasons in order. Number 1, move people past fear. Number 2, the minute they're past it, tell them exactly what to do. So when you say to me, they're fearful, you're not teaching them. Everybody's afraid of things until they understand them. That's just how we're wired. By the way, it's the same. And do you have little ones? Teach them to ride a bike? They were afraid. That's it. How'd you get them past it? You nurtured them, you explained it to them, you stood out there running next to the bike with your back aching, the worst day of your life. And then you pushed them and they went, and you were like, ah, and then they veered and crashed. Like, you remember this. That's everyone in your database. We teach to move people past fear, then we tell them exactly what to do. Most people skip the first step. They tell everybody what to do. They come back. No one's any better. That's why every one of these internet gurus out there who says, owning houses is stupid, you should be a renter. You do realize that of the millennials, and if you're a millennial, I'm not making any disbursement, I'm just saying that 44% of millennials think renting is better than owning. 44%. By the way, there's no math that supports that. The biggest ass on the planet is Grant Cardone, who runs around being wrong about almost everything he espouses. And not because I don't like him, but because I actually can add. Can add. I even can subtract under the right... I can do math. Anyone who tells you that renting is better than owning is wrong. They're just wrong. And we have to be clear about that. But when I tell you that like half of the next generation of buyers is unsure whether they should own a property or not, it's kind of an indictment on those of us that are supposed to be educating the next generation of buyers. Who's supposed to be teaching them? Let me just ask you this. Who has little ones? Anybody? Are you comfortable leaving it up to YouTube? Okay. Me neither, by the way, but it sure looks like we're getting comfortable with it because my kid runs around, he says stuff like, Dad, Mr. Beast gave away $3 million today to the pizza guy. True story, that's what he said to me. How come you didn't? I don't even know how to start with that because that's a lot of money. Is it though? Yep, it really is. All right. Cool. Let's hit these then real quick. Influencing others. Who asked about influencing others? You did. The way that I choose to influence other people is to teach them stuff. I don't know that that's the right answer for you. But here's how I judge influence. I judge it two different ways. I constantly am testing it. I test it with my database by calling the people in it and seeing if they answer. And I'm not like a dialer guy or this guy. I just use my cell phone and I call people, especially people in my SOI. And if you never answer me, I have no influence in your life. And if you will drop no matter what you're doing in order to answer me, I'm highly influential. That's how I grade influence from me. I know what's going on with my database based on the number of people that pick up or that call me back. And I know that when that number starts to go down, I got to do something different. The other way I choose to do it is through teaching. And I think of teaching like this. I think everyone's afraid. And I try to simply arm them with enough information to be less afraid when they leave than when they arrived. And every time I do that, I become more influential in their lives. I don't know if that's the right answer for you or the wrong answer. It doesn't help. The point, though, is you'll have to decide what influence means to you and who do you want to be influential with. Gary's fond of saying every one of us should be building a bench. Have you guys heard him say that? A bench of talent. I never understood what the hell he meant, building a bench. Why would anybody sit on my bench and wait for me to finally be able to afford to pay them money? I never understood that. Here's what he said. He said that no one would ever sit on your bench and wait for you to be able to afford to hire them. No one would ever do that. But being on the bench means that you're making their life better without asking for anything in return. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, here, it's really easy. How many real estate agents right now around the country are you enriching or coaching on a regular basis for free? And I was building my team at the time, and I said, for free? None. And he said, great, you have no bench. And I said, well, how many are you? And he said, here's my list. And he pulled out a legal pad. Kristan, you've seen it. And it had all these names on it. And he said, these are all the people who I'm coaching. And I said, well, so you think they're all sitting on your bench? And he said, no. I hope that one day my world gets big enough that I can finally earn the right to be in business with every single one of them. That's how he thinks of influence. Changed the whole way I thought about it. I hope that helps. That's influence. Time management, I think, is actually the same as clarity on dreams. I think time management is really, really easy. Everyone thinks they're going to time block, they're going to do all this stuff. I don't know about any of that. I'm not going to be fraudulent and tell you I do it. I don't. Here's what I do, though, since I got this job. I got really clear on what the 3 things that if I didn't do, I'm going to get fired are. And those are the only 3 things I do. But I do them at a level that's never been done before in our company. That's it. So when you say to me, how do I manage my time? You have the exact same challenge. You own this business. Whether it's you and you're by yourself, you still own it. Whether it's you and 10 people, you own it. What are the 3 things that you have to do in order not to get fired? And for some of you, getting fired means you don't take any listings this week. By the way, if you're a real estate agent of 1 and you take no listings this week, how many weeks do you let that happen before you should get fired? And in our industry, getting fired means you go get like a different job. You become like a home inspector. So how many weeks would it be? You don't have to answer. I'll do it differently. How many of you are getting out of the business this month? Just raise your hand. You're quitting. Okay, 60 days. Weird. 90. That's so interesting. Here's the challenge with it. Every single month, I see all of the people that come into market centers and leave market centers. So statistically speaking, it's impossible that all of you are going to be in the business 90 days from now. Maybe we're in the same room where Jack got his beanstalk beans. So by the way, this might be an amazing place, which I would love for all of us, including those of us on Zoom. That would be great. Unfortunately, because math, that's not the case. So here's what I think happens. No one wants to raise their hand. The challenge with it is if you don't raise your hand soon, it's almost a guarantee you'll be out of the business. Meaning the only reason we're here is to help you, but if we don't know you need help or what specific help you need, you won't get it. So here's the thing. If you don't take a listing this week, next week, the week after, how about if you took no listings for the next 90 days? Would you get out of the business? You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to answer. It's not important. Here's what is important. Taking listings is something we all have to do, which means if you're trying to figure out how to manage your time, until you do that, I don't know what the hell else you'd be doing. Just don't know. So I'm tired of beating around the bush on time management. I don't mean to sound and be affrontive, but the truth of it is, this isn't that hard. There's 3 things. What are they? You write them down. Cover up your paper like 2nd grade right now and write down. What are the 3 things that if you don't do, your life's going to suck and you're going to get fired? Metaphorically speaking, actually get fired. Everybody, by the way, if you're in this room and you work for somebody and you're not sure what those 3 things are, you better go ask for a new job description or get clear on what those 3 things are, or you are in danger every day you wake up. We get job descriptions, they're like 3 pages long, and nowhere on it does it say, oh, by the way, if you miss this one, you're fired. That's what real life is, though. If you own a team or a business right now and you want to go do the best exercise of all, draw your org chart. And then in each of the circle, write the 1, 2, or 3 things that if that person doesn't crush it, you're getting out of business with them. Then sit down with everybody and say, here's what I think. And if you really want to blow your mind, ask them to do the same exercise on themselves. What are the 3 things you need to crush in order to crush your job? If 9 times out of 10, they're different. Can you imagine that? How terrible that might be to wake up feeling like you're crushing it every day. The other person doesn't think you're crushing it every day. And you try to be in a relationship? Oh my gosh, that's enough for therapy. That's probably what most marriage therapy is like. I think I'm doing great. I think he's an idiot. Okay? I went to 4 different marriage therapists to come to that conclusion, by the way. I'll just be transparent with the room. So anyway, that's what I think of time management. I hope I didn't let whoever asked down on that, but I really believe it's that simple, and we all hide in, well, what model are you using to manage your time? I'm not. I'm just doing the 3 things that I have to do at a really high level. Clarity on your dreams. That's the 7-circle exercise. You go do that 7-circle exercise, what you will find, if you figure out what's most important to you in each factor of life, you now have your dreams. That's the easiest way to do that. I think that's extreme ownership, by the way. I know what I need to do. I figured out the one thing I need to do it, and now I'm actually going to get it done. That's the difference between training and coaching. Training is I stand up here and I talk at you and I tell you all this stuff. Coaching would be now I call each of you and I say, great, what actions are we going to take? I'm going to call you at the end of the week and ask you how you did. It's the only difference. That's as extreme ownership as I have needed. What's the next market? It's a great question. Who asked it? Do you mean just in real estate, or do you mean in all investment? What do you mean?
I meant in real estate, but sounds like
The math of it. So I don't want to guess. Like I don't have a crystal ball or anything. Here's what the math says. The math says that the next market is the divorce market. Divorce. Here's the reason why. We're coming off of the longest increase in wealth that this country has ever seen. We're coming off of an inflationary period, which you have to understand, inflation is is the most dangerous thing of all. And here's the reason why. Rich people that own assets, those assets go up in value. Poor people that don't, it just costs them more to do everything every day. And it creates a K-shape that expands and exacerbates the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And it kills democracies, which is why they'll raise interest rates as high as they need to slow it down. They don't care what happens other than that. And Republicans and Democrats, the only thing they can both agree on. Here's what happens. Every single time there's a bust, and just remember, to answer your question, that all day, every day of your life, you're living through this. This is not the scale, but you're literally living this every single day of your life. And what this is, the y-axis is the value and the price of things going up. So right now, there is no less globally than 25 different asset classes that are on the rise, and there's always more that are on the fall. We live in boom and bust cycles. There's nothing you can do to stop it, change it, push it off its axis. This is just what's going to happen. And you've lived through a ton of them. Some of you lived through the stock market boom of 84 and the crash of 87, the bond market boom of 90 and the crash of 94, the tech boom of 98 and the crash of 2001, the real estate boom of 04, the crash of 08, gold from 08 to 13, Bitcoin now. Like, you just live through this constantly. And it's important to understand. This is how you figure out what the next market is always, in every asset class. On the way up, it's always driven by the same thing, which is fear. It's fear of missing the opportunity. If I don't get in now, I'm not going to be able to get in. Johnny got in and he's making so much money. Everything is fear. If I don't, I'm going to miss. That's on the way up. On the way down, it's fear. If I don't get in out now, I won't be able to get out. I'm going to lose all my gains. That's what drives the markets down. Every single market. And then people always say, well, how does supply and demand weigh in? Supply and demand is just fear and fear. There's only so much of it. If I don't get mine, I won't get any. Supply. Demand. It's just fear. It's the most, by the way, the reason it works so well is because it's one of the most common human emotions. We govern all of our decisions by fear. And you say, well, not me, Jason. I'm not afraid. I move towards the stuff I like. By the way, that's just fear said differently. I'm not going to get the stuff I like. I better go do something different. It's just fear. It's just fear. Here's what happens. The only thing that's unique is this, which is at some point at the top, the marketplace changes the way they think about the asset class. That's it. That's what changes. And it's always different. In the last real estate market, it was when Bear Stearns went out of business and everybody all of a sudden was like, oh my gosh, this whole system could collapse. And everybody got really afraid really quick. Right now, it's as soon as interest rates got more than 5.5%. CNBC just came out with a study that 63% of Americans say they will not have an interest rate above 5.5%. They won't do it. I'm not going to do it, they said. By the way, because math, it's like a great rate. Historically speaking, like you should be dancing in the street if you get 5.5 points. It's unbelievable. That's where they are. So in every single class, you are trying to figure out what this moment is. The effects are always the same, but the moment is different. Does that make sense? Perfect. So here's why the math says divorce is next. Every single time you've had an increase more than 15% of wealth in the highest classes, and then there's been a correction, the divorce rate spikes dramatically, as high as 27% more. I don't know why. I mean, I can guess why. I think someone says, things were great, and now we have to tighten our belts a bit. And so I know we went to Hawaii 4 times last year. I know you're driving a Mercedes, and so am I. We can't go to Hawaii this year. And then one of them says, I didn't like you when we were going to Hawaii. You didn't? No. Okay, great. Said differently, financial changes affect relationships. So I think that the asset manager, you guys remember during the last recession, if you knew an asset manager, you were rich. The next asset manager is the divorce attorney for the wealthy. It's the next big market. I wish it wasn't. I find it really depressing. I don't love that. That's where I think it's going. The next place I think you're going to see the next market is in office buildings. Not all office buildings are created equal. So I think office buildings that are more than 100,000 square feet that are based in office, that is about to have a reckoning. It'll be the next market because prices are dramatically falling in that asset class, which means you're about to have a whole remargining of that business. And then if you asked me which I thought were holding that are going to go up the most, I think it's going to be manufacturing. I think buildings where people have to go there and build stuff with their hands are great things to own, and you're seeing those asset classes go up dramatically. Any questions on that? So you can look at, you just got to start looking around the world and saying, great, if everything is in this shape, which by the way, everything is, where is that asset class right now? What do I think this could be, and how close are we to it? I get to go and hang out with these hedge funds in New York now because I'm the industry guy, and this is the game that they play all day long, and they have rooms full of people playing this game. They'll make it sound more complicated, and they'll give you like a pitch deck and all these slides, but that's all they're saying. Do I think the frequency of the boom and bust is increasing? I think that I think it's the exact same volume, but you hear about them more because of the way we're connected through media and social media and all this other stuff. So like in the past, if I told you that Dogecoin was flying off the shelves, how many people would really hear about it? But now, since we're all connected through the idiot machine, everyone hears about it, and then away we go. So no, I think that the percentages are absolutely the same. I just think there's more of us playing the game than ever before. And by the way, the percentages of winners and losers are the exact same too. You get fat cats and starving dogs. That's where I think that's going. Any other questions on this concept? Cool. And by the way, it doesn't matter. If you know your model and it throws off positive cash flow, it doesn't matter what this is doing at all. The value of the homes don't, but you can play this with our industry. The only other line you need to do our industry is this one right here. This is the number of real estate agents getting into the business. And this is true. At the end of the last recession, we had 750,000 agents. Is your market going up and down or down right now? The value of homes going up or down? Great. So would you say you're here? Like, you know it's going to crash at some point. Are you here, are you here, are you here? Everyone vote for here. 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 None of y'all can agree. So I want to just be really clear that the group of people who's supposed to be educating the consumer, none of you really have an idea of where you are, or if you do, the rest of you don't share it. This might be a good thing to tackle with your ALCs. Maybe once a month when you're talking about the language of real estate, you're going to actually defend where you think you are in the cycle in this community. That's something that would be needed and useful for someone in the community to know. Let's just say you're here. You're at like 1.6 million realtors. This number keeps going because they keep getting into the business regardless of what's happening in it, because new agents don't know the difference. No offense. There's more people in real estate school today because of online real estate schools than licensed realtors. Just going to leave that with you. There's more people in real estate school today than there are licensed realtors. Now, the graduation rates are going down because they enroll online and they take a few classes, and then they're like, what do you mean it isn't like HGTV? I can't raise salamanders and sell houses at the same time? But you know, there's still, you got almost 2 million people actively enrolled in real estate school. I mean, heck, at your real estate school, Keller Williams, in your K-score, you have over 120,000 people that are going through to matriculate to become real estate agents. You've already graduated over 10,000 people that have joined the ecosystem this year alone. Kind of cool. Okay, are you good? Yeah. Great. That's the next market. Attracting talent. Here's the model. If you want to attract talent, there's only two ways to do it. Number one, solve a problem that they have. Number two, present them an opportunity they need. These are the only two ways that I know. Solve a problem they have, present them an opportunity they need. Once you get clear that that's all it is, everything else you're talking about is by which vehicle you do it. Usually when people say, like, how do I attract talent? What they're really asking is, how do I get more people to know that I can solve their problem? That's a totally different question. For me, I choose to use education for that. I teach stuff, and then the people that like the way I'm teaching it and the things I'm telling them, tend to approach me, and that's how I find talent and I'm attracted to it. I'm solving a problem. The problem that I have is I'm giving you models to think about the problems you have in life. Because I think the challenge of life is there's very few models to make it better. There's tons of people that want to talk about living a better life, but very few that can give you models on how to do it. I'm just a collection of models. For some of you, you're like, it's really boring and I dislike it, and Kristan shouldn't have him back. And for others of you, you're like, oh my gosh, I love him. Great. That's the group that I have a chance of attracting. That's it. So you're either solving a problem or presenting an opportunity. Who asked that, by the way? Does that help you? When it was explained to me like that, I finally totally understood it.
Like creates all the pathways to attracting talent.
100%. Once you know which one of those two things you're doing, now you're just saying, which channel am I going to use? You could use social media, you could use postcards, you could use cold calling, you could use teaching, you could use coaching, you could use any of them. But until you get clear on, am I solving a problem or presenting an opportunity, you're lost. Once you get clear on that, green field in front of you forever. And when you look at the best businesses, they all do that. Like, look at Homeward. The problem little Timmy Heil, genius, was solving, people needed to buy before they sold and they didn't have enough money. He opens up Homeward, he gives them the money. He solved a problem. Look at Kristan's network or Livian or any of these teams that are growing by leaps and bounds every day. They have solved a problem. I want to get more out of my business. I want to get more out of my life. Solution. Then you go down and you look at, well, present an opportunity. Profit share is an opportunity. Whether you take it or not, it's an opportunity. You see the difference? There you go. That's the way to think about it. Okay, how to take more listings. I'm going to hit this one. I'm going to hit it quick. I'm going to speed up the pace for you. Here's the deal. The first thing you need to do if you want to immediately take more listing, you're going to hate this. So just get it out of the way. Like everyone's going to start throwing tomatoes and stuff. It's really simple. If you want to take more listings right now, here's what you should do. Next week, you should have coffee with 50 people. That's it. Now, granted, you're going to be zooted out of your mind on caffeine. That's it. That's the whole model. And people want to complicate it. And they're like, well, do you mean strangers? I don't care who it is. I don't care if you know them. I don't care if you don't know them. I don't care if they're Mets or not Mets or past clients or friends of friends or someone you meet in the line at Starbucks. You sit, and by the way, I'm not looking for hours of your life. You spend 15 or 20 minutes and have coffee with someone, and you do that 50 times next week, I guarantee you, you will be closer to taking a listing, if not already taking one. And here's the reason why. Whether you want to admit it or not, and some of you won't, your energy, and I'm not about to get all weird and spiritual on you, but you have an energy. You just do. Just because of the way the universe works. And you could call it your life force. I saw this on Netflix. I thought it was so neat. And you can only make a change in your life when you make a change in your life force. An instant change. And if you want to do it, it's really, really very simple. It breaks into 3 things. Number 1, body. Number 2, social. Number 3, you. 1, 2, 3. You know, I've spent a lot of years in my life in therapy for a multitude of reasons. I'm a mess. I'm really good at making money. I'm pretty good at explaining ideas. But as it's come to being a husband or being a father or being a son or even being a complete human, I am very, very sub-average. But I'm working on it. And every time I would go to a therapist, they would want to start with the past. It's not wrong. It's just the way they do it. Talk to me. What's on your mind? And I would say something. Okay, well, where did that, and before I knew it, I was always back talking about this. Years 1 through 18, where I never got a grade more than a D, and feeling like, and all this stuff. I don't need to get into it, trust me. What no one ever said to me was that you could change your whole life tomorrow. No one ever said that. Instead, they said, are you willing to do the work of therapy? And I would say, well, what is that? And they would say, well, we got a lot to unpack so we can understand how you became the person you are today. But I would always say, but I'm miserable today. I get it. We could sit here and talk about how I arrived at this place, because this is only $300 an hour. Why can't I just get better? Y'all got like a pill? Or is like, why can't I just feel better? I mean, I'm as transparent as it gets. I'm divorced. I'm looking up at 42 years old. What's it all about? I've made a bunch of money and now I'm going to spend it by myself. A 10-year-old who wants to be a YouTube star? How could he pick the one business I don't know anything about? How could that have happened? I don't want to talk about how I got here. I want to just get somewhere else. And so what I found out, what this said anyway, is it said you can make a change tomorrow. I'm going to tie this back to listings. Some of you are like, I thought we were going to get, I'm going to get there. You could make a change tomorrow, but the only real shift happens when you either change the way you think or you change the way you behave. There's this thing right now, everyone's like, well, we're in a shift, and is Gary going to go write a new book, and are we going to go on a shift roadshow? And yeah, but I just want to tell you, it's all a bunch of shift. It's not, none of it is real. You can't control interest rates. None of you donate enough money to even get to talk to anyone at the Fed. Like, you don't have any, it has nothing to do with you. The macro of the real estate business in Scottsdale has nothing to do with you. You're not changing it. You're just a person on this rock spinning through the universe for a really short period of time. Most of it is nothing, the weather has nothing to do with you. You get mad about it, nothing to do with you. Like, it's just not real. So tomorrow you could wake up and do something different with your body. Even if that's just walk to get the mail instead of drive. Walk around the block. Go, do 3 push-ups. Just try to touch your toes. I can't get past my knees, no judgment. Whatever it is you wanted to do, you have to do something different with your body tomorrow. The next is social. You're hardwired to need people, even those of you that hate people. You just are. So when I tell you, go have 50 cups of coffee next week, you think that sounds like some sort of crazy radical idea. It isn't. It's actually the way you're wired. You've just suppressed it, and you've done an amazing job. But if you went and heard 50 different stories about 50 different people's journey and where they are right now, even if you just heard idle conversation about 50 different people's day, do you really believe that real estate wouldn't come up? Yeah, it'd come up. You know why? All of them live in a house. Everyone they know lives in a house. You'd have 50 different smiles, 50 different cries, 50 different new ideas. You'd walk away at the end of that week and you would be talking about stuff you learned from 50 different people. And by the way, let's just say you failed miserably and it was only 25. You would have an immediate change in your life. And then you need to wake up tomorrow and start doing something different when it comes to you. And the one thing that this person said to do, which I hate, he said you should journal. And I was like, not doing it. Can't read or write. I'm out. And then he said, no, here's what journaling is. It's so easy. Even if you can't journal, I just need you to write 1 sentence. And I said, well, what should the sentence be? He said, the minute you wake up, I want you to grab your notepad and write the first sentence that comes into your mind. And so I did this. And the first day I wrote, F this. I'm not proud of it. I was like angry that I had to do it. It was like, the next day, nothing. The next day, nothing. The next day, nothing. The next day, nothing. And then this day hit where I actually had a sentence. I hate this. That persisted for maybe 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, the sentences started to have some meaning and it started to make a difference. I don't know if you'll have the same experience, but that's what I did. So, how do I take more listings? Right now in your MLS, you got 12,600-ish active listings. Is that right? That's right. You usually have about 24,000. Is that right? Yep. Cool. Does that have anything to do with you? I don't know. I don't think so. Here's how you know. If you weren't in the real estate business, do you think there'd still be 12,600 listings? Yep. Good. Has nothing to do with you. It's fantastic. You've just proven it. You don't have enough of them. You want more of them. Well, here's the good news. Somebody else has them. Every day, someone wakes up in this valley and wants to sell their house. Every day, somebody wakes up here that wasn't planning on selling their house, but has a life event that precipitates them needing to do it. True or false? Coffee with 50 people. And by the way, if you did that next week and you didn't get more listings, what do you think I would prescribe for the next week? Coffee with 50 people. And by the way, if you did that and you did it for 3 weeks, here's what you're going to do. You're going to run out of easy coffee dates. And then it's going to get a little harder. I would submit to you that if you did that for a month, the relationships you made, the way that you feel, the energy boost that you would get, and the business that would come into your life, along with the opportunity to help people. You have no idea how many of those 50 need you right now. You don't know because you've never done this. Just like you need them, they need you. It's weird how that works. The activity for that month would coast you through the rest of this year. The rest of the year. You go give 30 days and you actually do life force, it'll coast you through the rest of this year. And there's nothing easy about it, and everything about it's going to be hard. And you got to do hard better. That's how I would go that's the number one way to go take more listings. Any questions on that? Okay, well, we did it. The only other one we have is how do I exit the business? And here's what I'm going to tell you. Exiting the business has never been easier as long as you're actually building a business. And a business of 1 can sell at the same multiple as a business of 40. And what is it driven by? It's just this. If you're one person and you build a database that consistently makes somebody who represents the people $1 million a year, you can sell that database for a multiple of the $1 million probably. If you're somebody who builds it that makes $2 million a year, you're going to make more money. 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, and up. The only limiting factor is the, quote, repeat and reliable opportunities that your database produces. That's it. So how do you exit? You actually build this. There's no way to exit a hobby. There's an endless number of people that will help you exit the $1 million database. There's a bunch of people in this room that'll help you exit that all day long. Because you look up and you see so-and-so sold their business for $100 million. What does it actually mean? It means one of 3 things in today's society. Number 1, somebody else thinks that the idea and the process they have is worth a lot of money. Spoiler alert for most of us, not going to happen in a residential real estate team. Number 2, someone's buying it because whatever they're buying produces repeat and reliable income. And I'm willing to pay a multiple for it. Because for some people, it's easier to buy it than create it. That's you, every single one of you. And then number 3, you get so good at a piece of it that someone's willing to buy your company just to buy you, which is what's always happened to me. Someone's always been willing to buy whatever I'm in to buy me. It has its upsides and downsides. Who asked that exit question? Did that answer your question? That's it. All right, everybody. We did all of them. Any questions at the end? Yes, ma'am.
So on exiting, let's say you're exiting, you're not going to be in the business.
Okay.
What are the steps? How do you figure out a price for it? And to include with your processes and how you do everything? Is that part of the package?
She's asking if you're going to exit and you have a database that produces X amount of money, how do you actually exit it? It's a great question. Here's what you do. You ready? I'm going to give you the model. What you want to do is you want to put together the package that you're offering. And I've looked at a lot of these packages. Here's what they look like. The good ones anyway. Number one, it's a brief. And by brief, I mean less than a page. It could be a paragraph. It's a brief explanation of what somebody is buying. It's not a long list of all the things included. It's what's the one thing that makes this even worth looking at. Because a list of assets is worthless. Pointing me in the direction of the real asset, right off the bat, that's it. So if I'm a realtor, I'm saying, you're buying a brand represented by my likeness that has a database attached to it that produces blank number of repeat and referral deals that's led to blank amount of revenue over blank number of years. That's the paragraph.
But those customers built a relationship with you. How do you transfer that relationship over?
I'm getting there. By the way, same problem that every dentist has, every dermatologist has, every eye doctor has, every lawyer has, and that's coming into the book. So number one, this is the thing you're buying. Number two, this is why I'm selling it. That's so important because anytime someone's going to buy a database-driven business, they're like, well, what's the reason you're getting out of it? We answer the questions before they're asked. That builds confidence in whoever we're selling it to. This is why I'm getting out of it. Number three, the consumer, this is a consumer statement, the consumer would define my value as the following. And then it's whatever the key pieces of value for your business are. And if you're running a team, it's how the consumer views you and your value and how your agents view you and your value. So when I do this with agents and they say, well, the consumer says, we're reliable, we're honest, and you demonstrate it. And the agent, we're the number one place for training, we're the number one place for, and you have to define what these are. So now I understand, okay, here's what I'm buying. Here's why this person is selling it, and here's the moats that they've built around their business. And the best businesses to buy are the ones that actually have a moat as part of their value. Someone who can say, my agents use my proprietary technology, which makes them blank more productive. My customers use, my app and return to it blank number of times a year. What's the moat? The next section is handoff, which is what you're talking about. And this is a general rule of thumb. This business is going to be sold, and there's going to be a period of time for handoff. Call it a year, call it 2 years. Most dental deals are 3 years. And then you define what handoff is going to be. In this case, handoff is going to be me personally introducing whoever buys this business to all of these customers. I'm going to do this over a period of 3 years. Once I introduce you to one, we meet, now it's your job to stay in touch with them. I'm going to pass this off one at a time. That's an example. By the way, that's how the vast majority of dental offices are sold over 3 years, because they see every patient during that 3-year period of time, and whoever buys it comes into the room with me. And I'm Dr. John, and this is Dr. Nick. He's going to be buying my practice. He's awesome. I'm going to do the work. You're going to get to know him. I explain how the handoff is going to work.
Is that done in person or a phone call?
There's no wrong way. You get to decide in the handoff. Remember, the business has more value if you're going to be hands-on making the handoff. If you're at a point in life where you're like, look, I'm done, then in the handoff section, you should just say, my last day is going to be December 31st. Anything you want me to do up until then, let's talk about it. I'm going to assign less of a multiple to that business and probably pay you less money. But the top dollar might not be your motivation. You might just be ready to be on the beach. But you got to address it in the handoff section. The next section, basic math. Don't call it a pro forma, don't call it financial. You're all going to freak out. It's just basic math. We generate this number of leads. Remember, any database business is how many leads we generate. Leads convert to this number of customers. Which then creates this amount of closed business or revenue. So top line leads, conversion number, total revenue. Basic buckets of expenses. You're not getting crazy detailed. You're just giving basic expenses, total profit. And then I always put the same last line. This business is expected to sell at a multiple of earnings at, and then I leave it blank, which makes them constantly wonder if I just forgot to put in the number, if it was a typo. And the first question they always ask is, I didn't see a multiple on your financials. And then I say, well, what multiple do you want to assign? And now I'm making them tell me instead of me tell them. And I really like that. I always say this business is going to sell at a multiple of earnings of, and then it's blank. And it looks incomplete. And those of you that are the high C, you're going to freak out. You're going to be like, I can't leave it like that. It's okay. I leave it like that. And then the first question people ask is, well, what was the multiple? What do you want it to be? What do you think is fair? And now we're going to see where, well, I always want to see where everybody is starting because that gives me an indication of where we're going to end. And then the last page is brand. I always put brand last, especially in the real estate business, because for most of us, we're the brand. That's how we do it. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, so I know everyone's ass fell asleep during this. You've been sitting here for 3 hours. Those of you on the Zoom, thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful for all of your attention. I hope I helped you guys. The idea of coming in and practicing seagull management, like coming in and pooping on everybody and flying out, like I don't want to do that. So let me give you all my cell number. It's 480, I'm an Arizona boy too, 299-0805. And my email address is jason@kw.com. I'm admittedly slow on correspondence, but if you reach out, it might take me a while, but I will get back to you. I don't ever want to harm anyone. So if you heard something, if you were offended by anything I said, I'm sorry. I'm working on it. You can just email me. You don't have to send my boss an email. You can just email me directly, and I'll fix it. And if you have any questions, I'd like to help. And this job for me, this head of industry and learning, I've been with Keller Williams since I was 19. I don't know anything else. It's taken all of the people here, Kristan and Jim. I worked for Jim's office as an agent. I got in trouble all the time for yelling there. Right. You used to have to talk to me about. Yeah. It's taken all the people at this company to help raise one semi-functioning human. And I think that's what's really unique about our ecosystem is people like me that need hundreds of mentors and thousands of people helping can find it. And I want you all to know you have the same opportunity. That's the only power of Keller Williams, is that we conspire to help each other because that's what God, family, and business in that order would dictate. And so if you're not getting what you need, you got to reach out. And if you are getting what you need, then you got to go grab someone who isn't, which is the hardest part of being in an ecosystem. Do this for just a second. Think about, don't make eye contact with anyone in this room, but think about the one person in your office who you know is, and I'm going to look at the ceiling, the one person in your office who you know is not going to make it. And the weird thing is, most of us are able to do that right now. That's the person. I'm going to beg you, if you're getting what you need out of life right now, please go grab that person. There's got to be something that we can do for that person. Find them in the right seat on the bus or help them get on another bus, or there's got to be something we can do for that person as opposed to just walking past them. That's my only ask. I gave as much as I could to y'all. If you got anything from it, go give to that one person. Because I got news for you, I didn't sell a single home in my first 6 months, and I was that person. And I promise you, there's someone there who doesn't know who they are yet, and you can really change their life. You can really help. So anyway, thank you for having me here.